This episode of Systems with Laura is brought to you by Proprium, business workflow and automation agency. If you're building a service-based business and you're overwhelmed by operations, automations, or choosing the right tools, this is exactly what Proprium helps with. Proprium builds systems that help you save time, reduce repetitive work, and scale without chaos. Learn more at proprium.agency. How do you keep track of every individual approach? Do you do any lesson notes? Which software do you use for the client projects?
OneNote for my hand notes because I have to catch everything as it's happening. And all of those notes that I mentioned, like the materials that I prepare and the materials that I give them after lessons, they are filled with this information. So if I do forget something, I have a lot to go back to and search and know where we are. So it's quite easy to track because all the information is logged somewhere. Even like the small things, I will write down the birthday of their child or whatever, because during the next lesson I want to ask them about it and I want them to see that I do care. And of course I'm not going to remember all of that. Some things yes, but most of the things I do need to write down.
Got it. That makes full sense. I'm wondering, what are some things that you like about OneNote and what are the things that you don't? What are the features that you prefer?
um I love that it has a lot of options when it comes to different colors and shapes and types of pens and pencils that it gives you, because I like to doodle and it helps my memory. And I like to highlight things and circle things and cross them over when I think, okay, this is silly. This is something that they just said and it's not true. So that's a great option. I like that I can divide information into different categories. And what I really love is that it's searchable. So, as long as you have a good system that you can remember when it comes to naming things and putting them in their right place, you can quite easily jump from node to node and find what you're looking for fairly quickly. What do I dislike? That's a good question. I haven't thought about it much. It can be a bit finicky when it comes to scrolling. I use this little screen as a notebook, so sometimes it can be a bit fiddly. And I would like it to recognize my written notes as text a bit better, but my handwriting can be all over the place, so they're not fully to blame.
I can definitely relate. You can see my Apple Pencil. I don't even leave it when when I'm not writing, but you
Same.
you have to, because you definitely, I think you learn faster when you write with pen and paper.
Yes.
And of course the electronic version, I write on my iPad. I have a little bit of a screen cover that gives this paper feeling, so it helps. Even though I use all of this software, I use all of this technology miracles basically, and we have everything connected and all of that. At the end of the day, it's much easier, especially when I'm talking to people. While I'm talking to you, I am doodling for my next question. So I think that's really a great approach. And what about your business, basically? So how do you kind of sort all the boring aspects that we have to work with as entrepreneurs? Your documentation. Where do you keep track of, I don't know, budgeting, for example, stuff like that? Do you do it in a traditional way? Do you work with virtual assistants? What is your approach to leading the business?
As I said, I'm still looking for the best approach. I've tried different tools, like I've played around with Notion, I've tried HubSpot, but I realized I had a bit of a frustration period, to be honest, because I realized that this was overly complicated for my business. So, what I mostly use are Google tools for that, for instance. So, my Microsoft is kind of for my teaching and everything related to that. And in Google Sheets, Google Docs, and so forth, I keep track of things related to my business.
That's a really
Again, it's searchable and it's all in one place and it's in a cloud. And that's what's important for
I
me.
definitely agree. So I'm wondering, how do you use project management software? Which software do you use? Can you walk us a little bit through your tech stack and basically your preferred systems?
Yeah, sure. You are right because every big part of being an entrepreneur is like having to have a system. And that was something I was not prepared for, I have to be honest. I knew there were going to be like tasks that I need to do, that there were going to be things that are not so fun, but I was actually taken aback at how many things there are to be done, especially like in everyday life. So I started looking at all of the softwares, and I just wanted to make sure that the software is first of all easy to use, and second of all, it's I can work with it. So I just have to um, I don't know how to say it. I needed to make sure to be comfortable with it because, for example, and I will be honest here, I started with Notion, and that didn't work. I was just too overwhelmed. I think it's a great program, but you would have to invest a lot of time into actually um, getting to know it. And at the time, I just didn't have the time or the will to actually look at it and do something with it. So I said, okay, that's not working. We have to go to another software. So right now I am using Trello, which is my number one project management tool. I started using Trello when I was studying, like I think that was like 2 years ago when I started with the university because I had all of these things to do, all of these deadlines, and it was just hard to keep track of that. So I think Trello was basically a lifesaver because it was and it is easy to use, and it has so many cool things that are essential for good planning. So I also use that in my work in my company. That's always the number one system that I use. Except from that, I have to say it depends on how big of an event it is. I do tend to use Eventbrite, which is a usual platform for events and ticketing systems. And I think I don't know if I would call it a project management software, but I also use Google Calendar, where I also keep track of everything. And I think without that, I wouldn't be possible to plan my day or plan my tasks.
So that's a really great description. And I love how you compared Notion and Trello. So Notion versus Trello, what were the differences that you encountered that kind of enabled you to have a
Mm.
good option of Trello?
I think what I find really cool about Notion is that you have everything in one place. So that was also kind of a reason why I wanted to try it out because I always heard people talking about it like, yeah, you can have everything in one place, and like if you plan it good, you can also put like I don't know your plannings for the next 3 years, 5 years, which is cool because I have so many things in my head, and I was like, okay, it would be nice to have it like somewhere, not in my head. But I think in the end, I found it difficult because it was not really automatized. It was like you would have to do everything manually, and I found that like so time consuming that I just said, okay, I can also do that, by hand, and it feels more natural. But as for example, Trello, it's also not as automatized as it could be. But for example, for my tasks, I think it's pretty cool because it's pretty simple to use. So I know, okay, if I have these tasks today, I can put them like in work or done or things like that.
So what about the things that are creative, but you can also systemize them? For example, you know, if we're organizing an event that's, for example, a product launch, there are some things that are definitely much more appropriate for a product launch, entertainment wise, than they would be for a birthday, for example. So how do you kind of systemize the creative options that you have? Do you have some framework around those?
I think it really depends on how creative we are talking, because if we are talking, for example, about visuals or about, I don't know, some videos as inspiration or anything that's kind of creative, I do keep that in my Google Docs. I also have like different places for different things, and I do have like an how do you call it? it's not a map. It's a I can't remember the word, but I have like a one place where I put all of my creative stuff in, and it's also called creative. So that's kind of funny.
That's really good because it's more of a mood board or idea,
Yeah.
something along those lines. Amazing. So you're balancing a master's degree, business, and you also have a podcast. So what time tracking or calendar systems do you use to maintain productivity? That's a lot of things to balance.
Yeah, I have to say, as I already mentioned, Google Calendar is really my number one friend at the time, because I think without it, I would just forget all of the things I have to do. I also have like handwritten to-do lists, because I always think like, for example, if I have a lot of things going on, I would just like sit down and put everything on paper, like everything. It doesn't matter what it is, and then I would just structure it in like a more structured to-do list. Like for example, if I have some things that I have to do that have to be done by tomorrow or the day after that, I will put that as a priority on the list, and other things I would just put away. But I think I mostly use Google Calendar because I can connect to that on my laptop and on my phone. So I always know what I have to do. And also there are reminders, which are really good, because it happened so many times that I forgot about a meeting or something. And then I got a reminder like, you have a meeting in half an hour. And that's always so fun, because I'm always somewhere doing something, and then it's like, oh yeah, I have to be at a meeting in 30 minutes. But I always made it. So yeah.
How do you protect your time and energy while running a business with those ad hoc situations that pop up,
Mm.
unexpected situations with vendors, maybe? Are there boundaries or systems that you have in place for that, basically?
That's a really good question. I think that was the most difficult thing that I had to deal with when first starting this business, because as you said, like if an event is in 3 days and a vendor calls me at like 8 p.m., I would have to pick up. But I decided that I will have just like my time frame where I'm available, which is basically the whole day. So I would say if I'm working from 8 a.m. until I don't know. I would say 6 p.m. Available until 6 p.m. and anything that happens after that would have to be moved to the next day. And where it gets difficult is when we are approaching an event, like a couple of days before. There, I make sure that I'm always available. But I think like a lot of people I worked with respect these boundaries. They also know themselves. Okay, yeah, maybe it's not nice to call somebody at like 8 p.m. We can also do it tomorrow. And what I what I usually say to myself, because sometimes I get really overwhelmed with situations, I have to tell myself we are working in PR and not ER, which is so funny because I tend to get too stressed. So at that time I have to tell myself like everything that can be done the next day will be done the next day.
So I'm wondering, do you have any routines? For example, in my own business, I don't have meetings on Mondays or Fridays. Do you have any rules like that that kind of help you, keep your sanity, let's say?
Yeah, it's pretty similar for me. Mondays I don't do meetings, and Fridays also not available because I'm studying like at the university. So Friday is also kind of day for emails. But yeah, I would say it is really important to have this one day where you know, okay, today I can just stay at home. Like I don't have any meetings, I don't have to look good. I can look the way I want to look. And I think a Monday is a good day for that, because like you're still maybe tired from the weekend and you're just starting. So I think that's a good thing. But except from that, I don't have any rules that I say, yeah, you can't call me between 4 or 5 p.m. I mean, I don't have that.
So I'm wondering, from that point in time to right now, 4 years in, how did your systems evolve? What was the system when you started for you, and what is a system or systems that you're using currently that you would kind of detect if you made a map of your business in a way?
Oh, there's so many. I don't know where to start. I think if I was to start from the beginning, it was restructuring my offers themselves. I had to come up with a systematic way to be able to create a business that worked around me, not just worked to suffice for clients. Before, I used to send a Calendly link, for example, and I'd be like, no problem, all days, all hours available every day of the week, whatever you need. I'd even open some slots on the weekend at the beginning when I thought maybe, you know, they can't fit me in around their work, so we'll do on days you're not working. And I very much started to burn because I could feel my boundaries are very off. So I started with restructuring and creating a system around what I now call the in on off method that I teach clients, which is around restructuring literally how your week looks, rolling your business on a 7-day rota, because we didn't create a 9 to 5 to have an online 9 to 5. We didn't leave it. So your business should actually run around a 7-day roster, but knowing specifically when you're doing in work, aka when you're actually working, doing any type of client work, anything around client reviews or any client support that you need to do, client calls, other times and days when you are doing business on days, anything that moves your business forward, anything that makes sure that you get to work that doesn't just support your clients, but supports you. So that would be around tasks that you need to develop, or if there's any work in terms of your branding, or you need to sit down and write your content, or you need to record things, they don't get overlapped. They don't, like, your priority is not your clients on those days, and you create strict boundaries. But just like when you know when you're working that you're on, you also need to know when you're working off. So having planned days off where you're not doing any work is just as important, because I feel like, and I have these conversations all the time with clients when we're structuring their businesses, it's around knowing just as importantly when you're off, so that when you see a 4-hour gap in your calendar, when that's meant to be the day that you have a client call, that you don't say, oh, I'll skip those client reviews and I'll go for that coffee that my friend wants because I have clear space, so I may as well just do it. It's having those boundaries with yourself, knowing, actually, no, that's my day for, these are actually my hours for getting client work done. So I'll tell my friend we'll go for that coffee on Thursday at 2 when I don't have anything on, when nothing's actually arranged. That's my day off. Or that afternoon is usually when I do no client work or no work on the business. That's when I'll rearrange it. So it started with actually creating those day-to-day boundaries in terms of structure. And then the second thing was looking at automations. So it was all about making sure where I was doing manual work that didn't actually require me. And yes, I had that mentality at the beginning of, I don't want to spend money. Sure, it only takes me a couple of minutes to do it. Sending that email of the welcome with the contracts updated or the onboarding forms, it only takes me a couple of minutes. But those couple of minutes were adding up, and I would make mistakes. I would send the wrong contracts. I was sending the wrong invoices. They were sending on the wrong days. And all of this was adding more pressure to the back of my mind, because even when I would send emails, I'd be like, oh my God, I would be triple checking the emails to make sure all of these things were happening. And on the flip side of that, if I wanted to create a premium business where I increase my prices, I could say and stand over that I would say I provide a premium service. That needed to start from the beginning, not just when they were working directly with me as a coach, but I wanted them to get that premium feel for my business from the minute that they said yes. So the minute somebody now sends me a yes, so for example, in the DMs, I send them one link and they can onboard themselves to the contract. It leads them to a portal where they get their own updated contract. They can sign automatically. They can go through the onboarding forms. They can book themselves in. They can sign any documents that I need. And sometimes I'm in the air, I'm flying, and I land to them having everything completed and onboarding themselves. And could I have done that in the moment? Yes. But one, they got a premium feel from the moment they got inside. And two, it was something else that didn't require me, because I always feel in business, everything is constantly turning. As soon as you tick off one to-do list, you've got another one to do. But these ways that you can support yourself creates a whole new version of you in your business, because you no longer have to put that time and energy into manual tasks that you no longer have to have. So I think that they were the main things on, like, making sure that anything onboarding and team management or client management wise was streamlined to a point where I wasn't stressing of, oh my God, when did that client's contract start? When does it end? When do I need to have that conversation of, do they want to continue or not? Eventually I got a whole board system set up, because I can work with up to 25 clients at any one time. So trying to manage contracts like that, for example, would have been impossible. It would have been impossible at that point when I actually started to really grow and scale it to having more than up to 5 clients that were my baby clients. When it started to go to like 20 and 25 clients, those added stressors I didn't realize, but without those systems in place, I was trying to manage all of this in my head. I was trying to manage all of tracking dates and tracking clients in the back of my mind without actually realizing how much pressure that was adding to me subconsciously when running the business. So even though I had all the added pressure of clients and trying to provide a really good service, trying to run the back end of my business just from remembering in the back of my brain was causing such strain.
Which software are you using? How did you set that up? Could you share a little bit more about that? And what do you usually use in your business that you would recommend to not just your clients, but also to digital entrepreneurs in general related to software?
So my ride or die software. So to begin with, my communication is all on Slack, simply because me and my clients love a solid long voice note, and I absolutely love that it dictates it. So when it comes to client communication and client support, I do a lot of it on Slack because I'm able to read their 5 minute long voice messages and actually not forget what they've said. I'm able to respond in good time, and I can read faster than I can listen to the 5 minutes. So it saves me a lot of time and saves them a lot of time too. So that's one thing for client support. When it comes to the back end business, my ride or dies are Thrivecart, probably one of the best investments I ever made. It was my first big investment when I started my group programs like 2.5 years ago, which was, I think it was a 400 or 500 euro investment at the time. And I remember feeling sick to my stomach, but one of the best investments I ever made, because it holds my courses, the portals, it does my transactions for money, it holds my onboarding systems, it integrates with my email marketing tools for like sending specific or giving access to specific things that people need when they're downloaded. It is a lifesaver in that regard. I can upload videos, I can upload downloadable workbooks, anything that they need. It's all in the portals that they get, because they get access to lifetime support to certain portals in Foundations to Fully Booked and Freedom Expansion Mastermind. So yeah, that's a lifesaver. And then the third one would be ClickUp that I use, which is what I use as my client management tool and my team management tools. So that's where I would host, once a person is automatically onboarded through the Thrivecart links, what they get is they are automatically then sent to my client management board. So then anything that they've inputted from the onboarding form is automatically put into the system, into the forms. I get their contract dates, their start dates, I have their offboarding dates, so I know when to start conversations with them. I have an automation that alerts me to when their contracts are nearly finished. So I get emails to let me know, like start that conversation, to remind me, so I don't need to pay attention to it. It is absolutely game changing. If I had 3 main tools to tell you to put into your business, they would be my main top 3 for now.
How long did it take you to do all of that and prepare it for yourself?
The Thrivecart one I did, I'd say within an hour. It was just a case of setting up the contracts, and once the onboarding was done, I did that myself. However, the client management tools, I got them all done by somebody else. Like, I invested in that setup, because you don't want, there's certain automation triggers that you want to be created, or certain emails that you want to send at certain times. And ClickUp seems straightforward. Do this and then you do that, but I didn't want to do it wrong, and I wanted to have it prepared in the right way the first time, rather than messing it up and then clients saying, no, I didn't receive that, and that never came through, and I never got that email. What are you talking about? Like, I have my feedback forms automated at certain stages of the programs that needs to go out, and I'm like, why have you not sent me that back? And they're like, I never received it. That would have been on me. And like, I am a tech phobe. I absolutely hate tech. Anything I can put to somebody else for tech, I will. Because I honestly think that I must have done something wrong to the tech gods in a previous life, because anything that will mess up. And I have a track record with this, so I put my hands up to that. But yeah, anything that I can, I will give to somebody who's an expert in it, simply because I want it done right the first time. I'm a big believer in not needing to make the mistakes yourself first. So if I will get to the point where I'll invest in the system and I'll look at it and I'll be like, yeah, no, I'm going to give this to somebody else. And then if I need it done the right way the first time, I'll just invest in it, because I'd rather have it done right the first time than experience the mess ups of not getting it done the first time, and the collision crashes that happen after that. Contracts aren't signed in the right way. Clients are past their contract dates, but they're still in my programs, but I didn't realize that their contracts are finished, or I haven't had time to have the conversation with them, or the feedback forms are not sent on time. Then I'm back to manual tasks, and I'm like, why am I doing this? Why am I back to running the business the same way I did when I didn't have clients, when I'm up to 24 clients at any one time, 25 clients? no, that's not happening because that energy I have to give it elsewhere now as I'm growing. And as I scale, I can't afford to give that energy to things.
So that kind of ties into my other question, which is related to what are some of the most common team dynamics do you see happen when you join a team? In doesn't matter which role, it could be also, the example from the corporation, but what are some of the most common team dynamics that happen because somebody doesn't have procedures and systems in place, and situations arise?
I'm going to answer that in two different ways. So if you don't have a system in place, there's confusion and there's miscommunication. Even sometimes when you do have a system in place, I worked with somebody once, we just had a small team. Our project management of choice was Asana. That's what everybody was supposed to be using, but not everybody was using it. So tasks weren't updated. Nobody knew exactly where some people were. They didn't know if they were on track, if it was done. Instead of putting comments in there, they were still using like Facebook Messenger. So it wasn't a lot, like even though there was supposed to be a system in place, not everybody on the team was using it. So there was still confusion and duplication of work, and during a launch when something was supposed to be done, it wasn't actually done, even though it was checked off. So if you have a system in place, you have to have everybody on board to do it. So that causes issues with team dynamics, because if you're the one that's following all the rules and somebody else is not, then there's frustration, there's annoyance, there's resentment, because you're like, oh, all you had to do was check the box. Like, what's wrong with you?
That's one job.
She was going, well, I forgot to check the box. Yeah. So, but one thing, I don't even know if this answers your question, but when you said team dynamics, it popped in my head. I always say, again, I just come up with my own rules, like the hiring backwards, start from the top. Hire for team culture fit. So I've seen so many times, especially in my HR days, sometimes you panic hire, like we need to get this done. So you just hire the person who seems like the best fit. Yes, let's get this done. That rarely works out. I've seen it done where people are really, really good at interviews and they turn on the charm, but they don't have the skills that they said they did. And I have seen people who do have the skills that they said they did. They're awesome at their job, but they do not fit with the culture of your company. So I always say, try to find the culture fit first. I know a lot of people doing hiring now, I've seen job descriptions out recently, they're asking for your Clifton strengths and your Colby A, or like all those personality tests and everything, which is a good baseline to go by. So yeah, I'd say, because if you hire for a culture fit, you obviously still need the skills. You're not hiring to totally train somebody from the ground up, but you can train them to be the way you want them to be, I'll say. But when there's like, I've seen someone come in who destroyed a culture fit and people quit. And he was hired for a leadership role, which trickled down to people going, don't make me work underneath him. I can't work with this person. And I've seen people, I'm out of here. And eventually that person got fired, but not at the cost of losing some really good people in the company. So that's why I always go back to, obviously, skill. You're not going to hire, like I always used to say as a copywriter, don't hire me to do your graphics. For the love of God, that's not going to work out. Like, don't hire the completely wrong person, but hire for fit, culture fit.
So we're all using software daily. I'm wondering, in any of the different roles that you've had, what would be some of the softwares that you kind of prefer? You mentioned Asana, you mentioned ClickUp. What is your current tech stack, and what are the softwares that you would recommend for small businesses?
For me personally, for my own business, I am still so bare bones. It's not funny. I am still a Google Calendar, Google Drive kind of gal. That's how I organize my stuff. Everything is in my calendar, even reminders. Just even like the tiniest, follow up with this person, but a lot of people have that in their project management, in their ClickUp. But it's just, my calendar is something I look at all the time. So it's just there in my face. So do what works for you. My Google Drive is, organized the way I like it. I can easily find things. That's how I use mine. If I am working with somebody, I like to use Airtable. Recently is a new one for me because you can easily import a spreadsheet. So even if I was using a spreadsheet, I could easily put it into Airtable. I know other programs do it, but they're not as smooth as Airtable. And again, I go with, and you touched on this earlier, go with what they're comfortable with. Yes, sometimes they're going to need a system because they might have a team and we can't all be emailing back and forth. Or how do you plan a project if there's no project management system? That being said, I will never push, say I'm a big ClickUp fan. ClickUp is a learning curve. That is not the easiest one to learn. It's great and it's robust, but it's really hard for some people. I've mentioned that to a couple of my clients. They go into instant panic mode. Oh, this is too hard. I can't do this. This is going to take up too much time. And then I mentioned Asana. She loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. Lived in it. So find what works for them. I wouldn't push. For like behind the scenes, I'm only now building out my own funnels and stuff like that. So that's all new to me. I'm using Systemi.io or System. I don't know how to say it. That's what I'm using myself.
I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Systemi.io.
Systemi, yes. Yeah. But yeah, I don't let them get away with being too comfortable. For example, I was working with a client who just couldn't understand Slack, could not get her head wrapped around it. She wanted to stay with email. And I said, well, we can use email, but we're going to have, for now, you cannot stick with email because too many things get lost. Things get lost in threads. Things get lost in, like the emails get lost. We're all just living in a sea of emails. So what we did with the team at the time, some of the team was using Asana. Sometimes we would use Slack. Two of the girls were really comfortable with Slack. So if we were just kind of working on something together, we would just quickly chat in there because it was a lot faster. But we would, if we were working on a project, we would have to make sure like there was naming standards in the subject line that everybody knew to follow. So again, just go with what's comfortable, but don't let them get too comfortable if something actually does need to be changed to be more efficient.
And just like in your example of that one person who made other people quit, that's a huge problem. How do you kind of advise, let's say, CEOs to prepare for that, especially when you're doing quarterly planning, you're doing, planning for the company. You can't plan those things just happen, right? So when you kind of look at the business, and when you look at any of the strategy that the business has to do of those three strategies, and something like that comes up, how does that affect the strategy and the situation in the company? How do you approach that?
Great question. Well, I would say first, if you're planning on letting somebody go, this just came to my head when you mentioned having to let somebody go. Prepare your notes for it. Doesn't matter if it's a best friend or somebody you just met, when you're doing it, be clear. I worked with a CEO before who it was one of their first times letting somebody go, and they were so wishy-washy about it. The person didn't even realize what was happening. They didn't realize they were getting fired because they weren't being clear enough, because you're doing such a great job and this and that and blah, blah, blah. And they're going, oh, great. And then, 10 minutes later, but we have to let you go. And I felt like just kind of like kicking them under the table going, get on with it. So just be clear. It's a lot less harsh that way, even though it might seem harsh. As for planning, it's easier to plan for, if you're going quarter by quarter, it's easier to plan for knowing who you have to hire. So we're looking at a quarter ahead. Okay, so we're upping our marketing. Now, maybe it would be nice if we got like a part-time marketer to come in and help us do this. That's easier. If you ended up having to let somebody go, say like at the beginning of the quarter and you weren't expecting to, I like to keep track of, okay, so you hired for this one role that you just let go. Keep track of the people that you interviewed that almost made the cut. So now you have a pool to reach back out to. Maybe they're gone because they almost made the cut, which means they're pretty awesome. But you kept like these 3 or 4 names of, okay, so I just had to let my OBM go. Oh, now what? So you go back to, oh, I remember her. She was pretty darn good. I'm going to reach out to her, see if she still has any capacity. So then you can either, you've already spoken to this person, you already like them, they have the skills you're looking for. If they have the capacity, they can start. If they're gone, maybe go to the next person. But if you don't have your pool to choose from and you have to start all over, just don't panic. Don't hire panic, or don't panic hire would be the other way to say it. Because I'm more of a hire slow, but not too slow, because I have seen the good ones get away. So hire mid speed. So I like the idea of keeping your backlog of, and they could be referrals too. You could be like, I kept my OBM, she's great, but this other woman that I interviewed, maybe your business friend is looking for someone and now you have a referral, and I'm sure they would appreciate that as well.
So is that a little bit of a uncomfortable situation? You had, I don't know, 100 candidates, you messaged them, you gave them an email saying, unfortunately, you didn't get the role. And then 2 or 3 months later, you call some of them. Is that an uncomfortable situation, or?
No, I don't think so, because if you really liked them, most likely you told them that. I've done interviews and didn't get the position, and I've been told, it was neck and neck. I don't know if that helps with the blow, because you're going, oh darn, I was so close.
Yeah.
but it's better than if you didn't respond to them. If you just didn't let them know that they didn't get the job, I would not reach out to them a second time. If you just said, no, we chose somebody else,
yeah,
and no explanation, I wouldn't reach out to them. But this is the tiny pool of, oh, I really wanted them, but this one just kind of beat her out a little tiny bit. Then I would say, when you write them that email or call them, whatever you do, say, oh, I really loved, your energy, or I loved that you could do this, but this one was just a little bit better fit. Then they know, oh, that sucks, but thanks for letting me know. So when you reach out, you're most likely in their head going, oh yeah, we did kind of click, and I do have some capacity. So yeah, I'm open to possibly work. Now, I wouldn't reach out and then change your mind. And if you did, I would not reach out to that person again. That would be a little unfair. But if you were ready going, oh yes, she's free and I'm scooping her up, then let's go.
So I'm gonna form this with a disclaimer, because we'll post this on YouTube. But I am not an HR expert, so I've done all of my interviews, me prepare and all of that. I did 2,000 plus interviews, so I have a little bit of experience, let's say, basically. A
A
little
little
bit.
bit.
Not too much, not the corporate experience, but in terms of interviews, I've realized my kind of recipes, I meet them first for 15 minutes just to see, how we talk as two humans, basically, just to get to know them in general. If I see from the conversation that this is a culture fit, then I invite them to a technical interview that's 30 minutes, where we talk about discussing stuff from their CV and what we're looking for. And then we have a group interview, where we have the candidates from the same category, basically, because we always hire multiple people for the same role. We never just go per one person when we are hiring, because we do a lot of project-based work. And we ask them to do this task together for an hour. So if you're, for example, doing marketing, you're applying for a marketing position, your task would be, as a group, prepare whatever you think is feasible for this hour, basically, just to see how they kind of communicate. And mostly from that group, 60 to 70% of them get hired, basically. And I've noticed, the first interview, the second interview, the third interview, the same person can show up in different ways. And somebody that I immediately liked, and I thought we clicked, seems to have completely different values and completely different answers on the third interview or in the group setting. And, if they're even rude to their peers, that's something that goes against our culture. I really don't want somebody who's gonna belittle anybody. So we kind of detect that also in that interaction. I also am very against the tasks where companies give you something to work on for a month, unpaid work. So I feel our time investment is, I would say, less than 2 hours in the interview process, and then we tell you if you're hired or not, basically. So what would you kind of advise me in this situation, if that makes sense? Is this something that you would advise to entrepreneurs who don't have an HR department? Is this a good method? What would you do instead?
I like that. One thing I don't like that you don't do, you don't do this, but I've seen recently where the job application is like a book and it's too long. And I'm not saying, like, people would say, well, if they want the job, they'll fill it out. And I'm like, but that's something you can cover in the 15-minute call. You don't need to make them go through all this. You can chat with them for 15 minutes. So I really like your process. I've heard of group interviews and I've been part of them way back in the day, but I haven't worked on a project. I love that idea because you see how they work with other people. That is brilliant. I love that. The only thing I would say, a little piece of advice, is if you had the team or a team member, I would say have them do the 15-minute call. Take that off your plate. So say we were working together. I would take the first call. And then I know you, I know the company, I know what you're looking for. So say you have, 10 people lined up for 15-minute calls. That's however many hours. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician.
Really bad at it also.
But that's, hours out of your week that you don't have to do. And you just sit in on the half-hour one. And so how does the group one work? Do you sit there and watch them, or?
Honestly, I do multitask. I really, and I don't like people to feel pressure. That's not my goal. So I don't sit and stare. I am
you're
there. I am there. I set
Okay.
expectations. So they also know, and we have it on our website openly, our process. When you get invited to the first interview, you get a link to the article explaining what's going to happen. And so you can opt in or opt out if you don't like that. But it's me, somebody who's senior in the team with me. And then we basically have a slide with one task, explaining the task. and they can do whatever they want, whatever they kind of feel that they can do at that moment in that time. I basically tell them, these are not the people that are against you for the job. We are hiring multiple people to set expectations so they don't feel like this is my competition, basically, because they're not. And then they have 45 minutes for the task, and we tell them that they can use whatever they want, whatever information is missing from the slide, they can think of it. And it's usually something so wide, for example, a new phone. And you have to come up with which features does the phone have, what's the price point of the phone, how do we present it. Then somebody pulls out Canva on the call, and somebody starts doing that, and then they basically distribute tasks, and you can see who's the leader, who's not the leader, for example. So it kind of helps us set the tone of the expectation. I am not that big fan of personality tests. I love to solve them. I'm not gonna lie. If I see another Enneagram that I can purchase, I'm gonna fill it out. I'll give them my PayPal. They got me. But I really don't think that that's correct, because in some personality tests, you would have a certain assumption about me, and you would maybe think I'm too technical, but I'm very creative, for example, which I didn't know about myself, right? So I do feel that you have to combine a few of them, like the DISC test, the Belbin test, the Enneagram, to get this layer of a human, to kind of see that. But still,
Yeah,
you don't know what what you get, because I think it's also this like culture mindset, and what I'm aiming for is growth mindsets. That's my biggest. Yeah. What do you think about personality tests?
I have the same opinion as you. I love taking them just to learn about myself and my strengths and this and that. And because there's times when you look at it and go, oh, really? I didn't realize I was creative or something like that. But I agree. I don't think it's what hiring should be based on, because you're not getting the full picture. Because it could be, I'm looking for a technical person. This person is showing up as 2 points more creative over technical, but that's just because I may have given an answer a 5 instead of a 4. Like, you could actually be the person you're looking for. So yeah, I think they're nice to have, but if that's what you're basing your decision on, I don't think you're finding the right person. Maybe you are, sometimes you are, but it shouldn't be your be all end all decision making, I don't think.
I think it's also, you don't know what's happening in somebody's life, so you don't know who you're getting. So on paper could look perfect, but maybe somebody had a personal tragedy, or somebody had a personal challenge, or they have a newborn baby at home. You don't know. So it's always context, I think, because you can label somebody as a low performer, but they're actually not. They're just having a little bit of a harder period in their life. Have you?
Yeah. Or yeah,
Or
a bad day. It could be like, do you always look on the bright side? No. But 9 times out of 10 you do, but today, no, everything's getting on my nerves.
Yeah. We are humans, and I think that's also something to take into consideration, for example. And I do think a leader should pull the person aside and ask, hey, how are you? And instead of like attacking, you are not doing this correctly. What we always like to ask in a team, not just me, but what we always as a team do to each other is like, hey, how can I help you with that? Because with that question, you literally get the context, because the person then says, oh, thank you, I've had a really bad day, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not focused. Then you get that like layer out of them, and you don't have to point fingers and be like, hey, you made a mistake, but you can also say, hey, you made a mistake, this is not okay. But sometimes the mistake is not because they are a bad employee and they want to do a mistake. The mistake is because life happened, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that. How can I help you, instead of going, this is wrong, or this is late, or this is not done right, this doesn't look right, and because that's not going to help the situation.
Yeah.
Or having a good team where somebody feels comfortable reaching out. Oh, I'm a little stuck on this, can somebody help me? Or Or if you're not busy at the moment, who needs my help? How can I help you? Like you said, anybody, you need me to, well, like I said, don't ask me to do graphics, but I can help you plan something.
I agree. I think that's also built over time because by default, people are scared of other people's opinion. So, for example, when we have somebody new in the team, we always have this policy of write everything in the public channels. Don't have a one-on-one conversation. Go for coffee with other people if you want. Like, yeah, have a one-on-one on that. But like, if you're working on a project, put that in a channel where the whole team can see. And I've noticed that everybody's a little bit uncomfortable and they're afraid if somebody's going to mock them or anything like that. But it's the reason why we put that as a rule is because if you want to take a walk, or if you have a headache, or if you want to take a day off, or if something happens, you can just tag somebody and say, hey, I need help with this, can you take over? And they have context. So which software do you use in your business?
Well, I like to write it down everything because I'm journalist. I love writing, so I started with my own notebook and a pen, and then I used Gmail, Google Drive, and I don't know, etc. Create my own website, but I started with notebook and a pen.
I think that's very crucial also. No matter how much software I use, I have now an electronic pencil. I use Apple Pencil on my iPad because you have to kind of, even when you have so much software, it's just easier. I think I remember more things if I write it down old school way, if that makes sense. So yeah. But you must have encountered other CRMs. What made HubSpot, the click for you other than the free resources, the community? What kind of, what changed when you started using that? So you were sure this is it, this is the software that I really want to, stand behind.
No, well, it's not about the other CRMs. It's about the tools because from very beginning, HubSpot started to present itself as a platform. So this is a bunch of tools which you need for quality doing stuff in marketing, sales, and customer service in particular. Thing is that I didn't know about CRM at all. Nothing. I was using a notebook, Excel spreadsheets, and that's it. And he attracted me with all those connectivity between tools which they have, and bring all the information into the on one place. Over the time, I figured out what is the distinctive difference between HubSpot and other CRMs. Thing is, when you buy, let's say, invoicing program or software, you have a kind of CRM inside of it. If you're doing something inside as a project software, something like that, you have a CRM inside of it. So the definition of the CRM is very basic. It's just a software who collecting some kind of infos which are useful for you. HubSpot started its career firstly as a software for a marketing mail, something like MailChimp. And they admitted that it was a very lousy and bad software. But soon after, they're trying to upgrade everything about it and figuring out that from that kind of software, create a CRM. So this is a different approach. They have beginning of the business cycle as a starting point for creating a CRM. Everybody else are doing the opposite thing. From the end of the business process, you need to gather at the end of the cycle all those informations. So thing is that everybody gets tired on the end of the business cycle to bring the information into the CRM. And if you are looking from the very start, if you detect who your leads are, the criteria of qualifying for the next level leads, when they become customers, when they become clients, and when they become ambassadors, it's completely another thing. And especially in these days when you can automate everything, you can force HubSpot as a CRM to automatically gather those informations, and from the very beginning it segmented it from defined criteria. So I believe this is the major point, the major advantage of HubSpot on market as a CRM. We just look around what we have got of tools, how we can combine them, how we can set them up for work, test and run. This is something that it's something like Lego bricks.
Yeah.
You have some standards, but it's up to you how will you choose the colors and the system of jointing.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering also, as an entrepreneur that understands the importance of working on the business versus in the business, how do you balance that for yourself? How do you, prepare for client work versus when you do your own sales and outreach? And you also do a lot of workshops. You're an educator. So I'm wondering, how do you balance all those roles? Which systems do you use? Which other software do you use in your business?
Yeah, well, let's say I don't use so many softwares or apps. Thing is that HubSpot is connected with my mail, with my phone. I'm quite comfortable to use it in any occasions. So about gathering information, the HubSpot is the number one. Other things that I use are all connected and synchronized with HubSpot, and that's a complete Google suite. I use Workspace for meetings, for video webinars, for sharing all around the channels. So everything is inside. Outside of HubSpot, I use two apps, and one is AI note taker, which is very handy, beautifully speaks and understands Croatian. That is the most important thing, because I work on Croatian market and region outside of Croatia, like Bosnia, Slovenia, and Serbia, and really take notes in a proper way. So the app is Too Long Didn't View, TLDV. It's a European app. I believe that is guys from Germany created. And the other things is mostly packed inside of the Google and HubSpot. And that's it, really.
For anybody considering HubSpot, before they kind of jump in, what would you give as an advice to somebody thinking about getting a CRM, a small business that's not sure, do they need it, do they not need it, and what should they maybe consider for them to understand if this is a fit for them?
Yeah, good stuff. Thing is that it's rather difficult to say upon someone when you are at the beginning of anything, you are afraid of everything. So you're afraid of new, you're afraid of unclear next steps which you're taking on. Thing is that when you're at the beginning, mostly you are most confident with old stuff or old tools that you are using already. But let's put on this way. If you ever heard for CRM, this is not the same thing like it was even 5 years ago. So this is something that is so flexible, so stretchy that you can put in progress even for a small micro or nano companies with 5 or 10 customers, which will help you out to learn to have a very clean system of saving the informations. You'll never be so accurate with putting informations into places like you do with CRM. Never. I ended up with 2 or 3 systems of naming and mapping files, and I couldn't get it so clean and so nice like in CRM. Learn the CRM. CRM just you don't need to learn CRM. You just need to plug it, and everything he will do for you. And at a time when you're going to reach something, you will see that it's much easier to do it over CRM than over any kind of other tools. So this is my main recommendation. Fear not, just plug it into your system and put it on work. And when you gather the courage, open up and see what's inside, and you will be amazed. This is something that really I'm trying to explain to old school, those who are waiting the days to the pension, and they are the heaviest pupils for CRM. I don't need that. I just have my Rolodex and my notebook. This is my CRM. Okay, go ahead and find yourself into the 20,000 contacts into your mobile phone. How will it go?
You cannot always count on people's resources, because when CrowdCube was started, the mission captain, she didn't know if she was going to have all the people available to her all the time. So it took a while to get all the moving parts together. I would say the biggest system was led by was the vision, and the sheer will to launch something and to become one of the 80 companies 80 countries that have the satellite in space. So Croatia is one of the last in Europe that didn't have anything. So I won't say there were big systems, but let's say what infrastructure we had at our disposal. So we had meetings, like monthly meetings. There were events that were scheduled and organized regularly. Those events are still going today. For example, exhibitions in the Nikola Tesla Museum in Zagreb, all kinds of festivities related to space, lots of educational workshops. All those things are still going on and were being organized in the last couple of years. We used Slack for communication. We use Google Drive to share files, to collaborate with each other, and of course, lots and lots of video conferences where we discussed issues as they arise. I can't say that, of course, when you launch the second satellite, if you launched the second satellite, you would be much smarter because you would know what to do.
So I'm wondering, what are the tools that you use in your own business and that you can recommend to the audience?
Okay, let me remember what it's on my list to pay every month. Yeah, okay. I'm on Google Workspace. So Google's infrastructure is our platform for the last 16 years. And I'm not proud to say that we are depending on it, but we are depending on it. There's Notion, which is the heart of our social media content production. The entire process has been set up very well. I have to say it, and I'm very happy with how it all works in Notion. So I am able to share stuff with outside people, with virtual assistants, and everybody else who needs to, get plugged into our system. This is where we produce
social media posts where I can review posts before they get out and are being published on LinkedIn, on YouTube, etc. I use the script for video editing, for transcripts, and for lots of AI work. For example, for generating table of contents and chapters on YouTube. It's absolutely pulling its weight in as whatever we paid. It's $30 a month, so it's worth the money. Um, we use HubSpot. This is we've been using it for a couple of years, but we've been a paid member for a couple of months, and this is something that enables us to share support inbox. It's very important that I'm not the only one that talks to customers. That, if a bus runs me over, that somebody else can pick up my slack and keep working. So I'm not the only person in the company to do stuff. That's very important for me. What is important? Restream for live streaming is absolutely essential and has been essential since 2020. This is the go-to software I use for video podcasting. I will continue using it for recording without going live, because other software has proven to be unreliable and unstable. And given that I'm happy to have a good relationship with team that works in Restream. Sometimes I hear about new features that are in beta. I learn about it maybe a little earlier than it's officially announced. So I know that I will be able to use Restream for years to come. What else? Yeah, that's basically that. I hope that no software is offended by me forgetting about it, although I have to pay for it. But yeah.
Well, let's hope that nobody raises your bill next month. Yeah.
Yeah, Canva tried. So this is why I omitted them.
There you go. And what I like is that they then listen to their customers, which rarely happens. So I'm really happy that they did that. But yeah, I definitely.
Yeah, I like Canva, and I hope to use Canva for years to come, because they have really democratized my access to design, because I'm not a designer.
Definitely, I agree, and I think that the new features that they just shown last month are gonna be even bigger, kind of revolution, I would even say, within that industry. One of my favorite questions to always ask an experienced entrepreneur such as yourself is, if you had to do it all from scratch again, that tomorrow would be day one and you have same knowledge, same experience, but no assets. What systems would you set up first? 3 systems that you think, you would set up immediately if you were to launch Eduza day one tomorrow.
Okay, 3 systems if I had to do it all over again. Of course, now I have AI, so it's easier with that. I would probably create. We have a lot of internal software that we created for ourselves that generates content, so that we don't have to. We don't have to manually create content for our newsletters. So it's something that my partner Sasha has made for us, but it wasn't connected with AI. It still isn't, because we use AI separately for our internal code. I would do that maybe sooner rather than later. I would create a system that generates content so that we can so that the only thing we have to do is review a newsletter edition, just as a human editor, go through it, say, okay, this is good, publish it. We've spent a lot of money and human working hours publishing those newsletters. It's important to have the consistency and to have publications that people rely on, but I would do that sooner. Our own custom built software with integrated AI by to integrate those two things. That's one thing. I would probably, I'm trying to remember what is still eating up our time, our time yet. Yes, I would maybe, we use a social media scheduling app, that a piece of software that publishes content on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook, the schedulers. I would love it if I had chosen a tool that has an API so that we don't have to go there manually, click stuff, copy and paste stuff. The software doesn't have API, so we're still, creating content outside of that app and pasting it into that app. There's a bulk upload, but we're still not using it. So yeah, I would use that. Third system would be better customer communication via shared inbox. I would do that much sooner. So this is the HubSpot part that we use. HubSpot allows me to create an email address such as, I don't know, support@domain.com. And it allows me to share that inbox with other users who are not my employees, who are my virtual assistants, freelancers, collaborators, etc. We have added that only recently in the last couple of months, and if I had done it before, sooner, then maybe I would have taught other people how to operate those inboxes, those support channels, and maybe I would save myself some time for creative work, for creating new media. What I would not automate at all and never is the podcasting part, with the conversation part, the enjoyment of producing my live shows, because this is the place I absolutely enjoy, and everything else can be automated. Just leave my podcast to myself.
I understand that everything we're going to talk about we can't put in a box for sure, but still, not having it in a box is also a system of itself. So I think it's going to be useful. So I know that you often say that mindset is the first system we need to fix. So what does that mean in the context of daily life and or business?
I love this question. And I think this is so important because, especially having this podcast around systems, when one has a business and you think about a system, you think, okay, what platforms am I using? Am I using a tool for social media? How am I growing my team? How can I scale my business? And of course, there's all these back end systems that do lay a foundation in our business. However, one of the most important foundations that you can have is building your mental foundation. But now, in the place I am today, I'm realizing and helping others see how important the mental foundation is. Because let me tell you, back in 2020, I didn't realize that as I was helping all these women with their mindset in their health, I didn't realize my mindset was holding me back in my business. I was like holding myself back. I had fears and doubts, imposter syndrome. We're going to tap into some of these things in a bit. But I didn't realize that. So what I did was I was always looking for strategy. I wanted someone to tell me exactly what to do so that I could make 10K, 20K, 30K months. Just tell me what to do. I'll do it. And what did I do? I did just that. I found people to tell me what to do, and I tried doing it. And maybe I would succeed for 1 month, maybe 1 month, 2 months. But what would happen? My fears and doubts would kick in. I didn't actually ever work on the root cause of why I had the fears and doubts that I did. I didn't spend any time working on my own mental foundation. And I then found myself in a spiral. And I started going down a path where my business was running me. I wasn't running my business. So having these mental mindset systems and foundations is so key, because when you shift the way that you think, you shift what unfolds in your reality. Because what we think about and speak about, I'm very big with my hands. What we think about and speak about becomes our reality. And this can be a harsh realization. Let me tell you, there are things in my life right now I don't like, absolutely. And it's hard to accept that I have actually manifested this in some way. But the great thing is, by shifting the way you think and speak, you can shift your reality. So, what systems do, they're not just external structures that we have, they're actually energetic containers that support your expansion. Your mental foundation supports your expansion. And what does that do? That then helps you ensure that you get more aligned.
I feel like this uh, unselfish helpfulness to people with real advice basically is kind of crucial. And you did that over 5,000 times with your posts. So how do you get ideas? What is your system behind all of this?
Uh, I would say that, there is no system to it, Laura. I know it's crazy for many, that you don't have a content calendar that you book through. No, I don't have one. I just plan my newsletters well, but apart from that, whatever posts you would see are, usually creation of 15, 20, 25 minutes of work. And because I'm not following a system where I want to post for the sake of it. There is a difference when you're posting for the sake of it and when you are writing from heart. And I've seen that whenever I'm writing from my heart, something that is very very true to my personality, that gets more engagements versus something which is very much well thought of, something which is very much worked upon, because I think that is the kind of authenticity which people relate to. And it's it's very easy for people to these days identify the difference between real and real. So whenever you are actually you know writing something which you resonate with, you find your tribe of people who can actually resonate with it even better. So that system has stayed with me. I just write what I feel like, and it could happen sometimes 5 times a week, sometimes maybe just 2 times a week. And there is no strategy to it.
I think that's also a strategy. Basically, follow your heart, right? That's basically your system to be authentic with it, and to be attuned to the needs of your audience. What does it mean when you say build a relationship? Are we talking about just having a conversation, offering them a lead magnet, or inviting them to a virtual coffee, or sending them a piece of content? Could you unpack how you build a relationship?
Yes. And I will tell you the exact process we follow. So, when we have a prospect, a dream prospect, out of those 150, and we follow this process for all the 150 people for the first message, that, maybe they have done a recent webinar, maybe they have spoken on a stage, maybe they have had their recent blog, anything, and to make the process more seamless, we use ChatGPT. We would tell ChatGPT to summarize that in maybe 5 to 6 lines. Now we have the gist of what they have done, okay, which is very recent. Now we give that a very very personal touch, adding our opinions to what it would feel like to them, and narrating it with a personal story. Maybe, mind you, that before we send these messages, we have 3 4 calls which are very detailed, where we understand everything about the client, all the breakdown, because we want to send the right information. We want these messages to be highly accurate, right? So when we are adding these with our personal narratives and everything, the person is likely to accept your request. They are more likely to, if you say, I would like to connect with you, versus you put a message like this, or versus you give them a taste of you having researched about them, not in a chat gpt way but a full way, is a total game changer. Not many people do it because it's a lot of hard work, and they would set the automations, and the same message would go to maybe 100 200 people a day. But this approach actually shows them that you are taking the first step to building a relationship from the very first message, and that makes all the difference. Now they are going to reply something, and that is how the conversation starts. And it doesn't have to be a conversation we are talking every day in 3 months. No, that's not how it is. But you are being in their mind, in these 3 months. Maybe they are posting something, maybe you are, just giving them suggestions on something they did. So, you're building that relationship, and you are making it very clear to them that you are not selling them something, because if you do that, they are going to run away. And after 3 months they're very comfortable with you. 3 to 6 months, but mostly 3 months is the cycle. They're very comfortable working, wanting to get on a call with you. And that is when you speak. And if you are coming from a place of authority, and you can explain your offers better and do all of that, they are more likely to buy everything you have to sell, rather than cold calling, setting up your sales systems, having virtual assistants do that, then your sales guy taking over. All that maybe helps after you have built your personal brand to some extent. Team scale, I'm not saying you don't have to scale with all these systems, but initially this is the process that works out really well. Even if you have a team do that, maybe this is the process they could follow, so that it gives a very personalized experience to your clients. Because honestly, LinkedIn is a lot of professional platform. It's uh, really a place where you can connect with your target audience, unlike Facebook, unlike Instagram. So this is what I do, and this is what I highly suggest: building your outreach systems even better with this approach.
I'm now wondering, for all of that, it takes mental load because you're building a relationship, you want to remember details, and it takes 3 to 6 months of communication. So do you use any tools for that, a CRM, LinkedIn Sales Navigator? How do you navigate the posting, the all of the mechanism around it with tools?
Right. So, we as a team use LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's the best way to track all the leads. And to schedule the posts, we make sure that we use Taplio. It is an amazing tool when it comes to scheduling your social media posts. But at the same time, I would say there is no fixed breakdown when it comes to even using Taplio, because we keep experimenting with the time when the client is getting the right traction. uh, I think the worst part when it comes to scheduling is that sometimes if you are just setting up the calendar and everything, you take one day and you do everything. But I think it should be reiterated with every 5 posts or every 7 posts, so you can actually see which time the client is getting more traction, instead of setting everything all at once and just putting your hands off the task. So that is something we definitely take care of as well. And all these small things do make a lot of difference when it comes to you know connecting with the right people, getting your content seen at the right time. Yeah, that's all.
If today's episode makes you realize your tools are not supporting your business, Proprium builds systems in tools like Airtable, SmartSuite, ClickUp, HubSpot, Make, Zapier, and many more. Proprium's team maps your processes, builds your workflows, automates your tasks, and trains your team. If you want systems done properly, visit proprium.agency. And I'm wondering, which AI tools are you using and how?
All right. When it comes to voice to text, I use my phone for that. So the Note app normally, because that's just the things that I come up with while I'm away from my computer. Otherwise, I can do it myself. Um, when it comes to I really like Claude for writing because um, I need to train it less than ChatGPT to get
Well, depends
really
on which
decent
model,
results.
right now, not so much, but yeah.
Yeah, it's hiccuping lately, but in general, it's been a really nice friend of mine as well. And I like the tone that it's programmed in. It's really psychological. It's nonsense. I think it's probably being developed a bit less than ChatGPT now, but I still have a fondness to it because it was one of the first AI tools that I used. And it wasn't, we talked about cultural differences, but there's this enthusiastic tone to ChatGPT until, of course, you can modify it, but the default is very in your face. And that can be a bit alienating. Claude didn't have that. It had more of this academic kind of tone to it, which for better or for worse, I respond to. Sometimes it's a problem, sometimes it's an advantage. It really depends. I use it a lot for brainstorming. It's really helpful. This can be quite a lonely job to do. And having a sort of thought partner that's pretty neutral can say stupid things just like humans. So, there's still a level of critical thinking that you need to employ and can surprise you in some ways that, again, can be positive or negative. I think it gives a sort of dynamic to your thinking, whatever it is. And sometimes it results in me being more self assured about my human ideas. It's like, what on earth is this? No, this ain't gonna cut it. I'm gonna have to do it like a more simple way that I can enjoy. And sometimes it really reveals things that I gloss over for whatever reason, be it a bias of mine or some hyper focus of mine or whatever. So it's really helpful in that way, in designing all kinds of activities, in making inert things interactive. That's one of my favorite things. So, when it comes to learning design, when it comes to making things more user friendly, more interesting, more fun, you have the same content that you used to have in some non clickable form, and now you can plug it in and make it into something that they can play with. That's a major part of what I do, and it's super fun. And I want to dedicate more time in my schedule for that. That's kind of my next thing, actually, my next idea. Because when I first started playing with AI, I created a text adventure game,
Ooh.
which, as a nerdy weirdo, I really like those
Tell me
kinds of
more
things.
as a fellow nerdy weirdo.
It's something that can be a bit hard to sell to my students, and interactive fiction is quite a field that's literary, and it's female
Mhm.
dominated, which I love, unlike most of the gaming industry. So I always really loved it. But it's often quite complicated for my students. So I wanted to create something that was on their level of language and that explicitly teaches them English in some way. And when I was able to do that, so quickly. Like, I remember some unfinished projects from God knows when, like 10 years ago, where, oh, who can learn Twine? And now I need to learn this and go, oh, programming this and that. It was really a pain. And when I realized, oh my God, Claude and ChatGPT can do this in like 5 minutes. What the hell? Like, my childhood dreams are coming true.
Finally.
Yes, yes. So for creating artifacts such as that, they are really, really helpful. Something to keep the creative juices flowing, because we're not. I think it's opening up a whole field of possibilities for people who don't know much about coding or different things, graphic design, Canva, the things you can do in Canva with 3 clicks now, and the sort of things you had to do 10 years ago to get the same effect. It's crazy. So, to create an episode cover for my podcast, 5 minutes. Overthinking and overdoing and over planning in the old tools would have taken so much more time and energy. So that's something, making things visually appealing for my clients. Perplexity for a lot of research. If I'm interested in something, especially, we talked about this learning. We keep learning new things about pedagogy. And sometimes you get a sort of feeling like, I think, like what you mentioned, Laura, with writing down with your hand. There are studies that actually prove that this aids your memory. So I might go to Perplexity and say, could you dig this up for me and give me, some proof or disprove this idea? Is this just my bias and so forth? That's been the perplexity part for me. That and exploring, like, what should I buy gadget wise, things like that.
What was your biggest kind of, I would say, surprise with all of these tools, other than the project that was in your back end for decades?
Well, I played around with all of them, and I would try Copilot, Gemini. Sometimes when something's super important, I would use like 5, 6, 7 different ones. And as you said, the fact that you really get something different is quite surprising, and it's good and it's interesting. One thing that I think we all need to be careful about is the fact that these tools, they do want to praise you, and you need to be very careful with your prompting if you want critical responses. It's that extra step. It's a small step, but it's a step that people forget because we all want approval. So what you said, for it to find holes, you need to be very direct with it and ask it to do so, to be neutral and to be judgmental of whatever you're feeding it, depending what it is, of course. We all need to be very careful with our data as well when it comes to that. And I'm still a bit wary when it comes to image generation because I have some ethical concerns when it comes to that. So I don't dabble with it that much. I don't really need it that much, to be honest, unless I'm illustrating a point that I can't otherwise do. Um, I think that it's very interesting to see how they develop, because the way that they've been expanding has been quite interesting, and it can be a bit concerning in a way because we wonder where all this data is coming from. And another thing is that I think when you ask it very directly to challenge your biases or to tell you like where it thinks we are coming from, that can be a bit painful sometimes to read, but I think it's a very good practice. It's that sort of balancing. We talk here about confidence and making sure that we trust our expertise and trust ourselves. And on the other hand, you are human. You will make errors, and there is no way that everything you think is true. And I think it can be difficult to balance these two things because, we often go into overthinking when we ask ourselves questions. But as long as we can be concrete and very honest with ourselves and others when it comes to our values, I think that these tools can help put things into perspective and systemize them and save us time. It's the time saving that can be really revolutionary in our businesses, especially if you're a one man band, one woman band. How much time do you realistically have? And if there's a tool there that you can, train yourself to use very efficiently, and it can save hours of your time, that's hours that you can spend on your self betterment, on the betterment of others, of helping more clients, of doing whatever you dream of. So that's the bit where I see a lot of us helpers actually having our own helpers has been a really, really major opportunity.
I definitely agree. And I think that we're both on the team of AI won't replace humans, but humans using AI will replace, humans not using AI, because this is something that needs to help us. It's not against us. It's a tool and technology that basically makes things easier. And what I love most lately is how it can summarize. For example, I feed it a PDF and I ask, read this. Make conclusions, help me with what's the main summary of this. I feed it my own lectures basically just to see, did my message come across in my script? Do I need to prepare something different, etc.? And to circle back to the business English aspect of it, I remember in the early a few weeks when ChatGPT was released, when it was still not there like it is currently. I remember feeding it my blogs and asking, how does this email sound like? Because I needed that validation a little bit, and it made me even more confident in what I already knew. So I think that's one tiny fraction of it, and I think working with you directly, that would be much bigger impact, because you have a human that's heard all of these stories, that understands basically your fears, understands the layers of our complexity in all of this that we are actually doing, and can give you feedback and can guide you through that. So while AI can tell me, will this sound good to native speakers, I think that we still won't be replaced basically as professionals in that area. What do you think?
We won't be replaced by AI. I mean, AI can replace certain roles, and it will. And companies that are motivated by profit only will certainly try, and people will get bad and non-personalized service because of it. It will happen. We shouldn't pretend that it won't, and that there won't be some algorithms in the background trying to cut people's work. But there's always been bad services and there's always been shortcuts in this way or another. So it's just one in a series of these things. um, when it comes to AI being a sort of must learn, I think that one great thing is that it's kind of user friendly, and I think for new generations especially, because I think there's less of a steep learning curve, or at least for the basic things that are going to become part of digital literacy, than for some other things in the past, like Excel. So that's one thing that's going to be helpful for a lot of people, and it is already. And when you mention, like, how does this sound to a native speaker, that's one thing where we need to be careful, because a lot of these AI tools do perpetuate certain ideas, like silly ideas that we have, like that we even know what a native speaker is and which native speaker. Like my neighbor John, who has a vocabulary fond of like 200 words, or again, a PhD professor at Harvard or something like that. We need to be very specific in the way we feed AI and the way we ask it questions, because we will get responses that are of the same quality as whatever we put in. So that's something to definitely be wary of, and something that we need to include in all aspects of education, I'd say, because people are not aware of it. People use Google badly still, and they will use AI tools in a very superficial way, and it might be used to perpetuate certain biases and silly ideas. Like, I mentioned the learning styles. Of course, we can interpret it in different ways, but this basic idea of learning styles that has been disproven, I still get AI responses with the inclusion of them, because it's been repeated so many times that it's basically true for a lot of people. And there's a lot of information out there like that, that's just true because it's been said so many times, not because it's been proven.
I agree with that fully. I love to feed it context, and I love the prompts. I'll give an example. When you tell AI how to act, in terms of act as a marketing expert or act as a podcast expert, for example, when I was researching how to start and stuff like that. And I always do feed it, for example, my native speaker would be my ideal client. So I think it's very important to emphasize that. And I do have a silly question for you. So are you one of those people that says thank you just in case if the if AI becomes sentient or no? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And I give it approval, like my students, like, oh, that was a really great response. And it goes, oh, thank you.
Have to check, that's also very, very crucial step of that. So
Absolutely. At this point, it's not even this idea of, I'll be saved when it comes. It's more of a like, this is my
Yes.
friend now. I can't just treat it like any other person.
Well, there are different uses for that. I've also encountered that you can, send pictures and you can ask things, or you can do recipes, for example. So I really feel like I talk sometimes more to ChatGPT than to my best friend. But I found it really useful for a lot of those things. So I'm happy that you share the experience. So looking at the future of events currently, with the robots being prepared to enter the market, you've seen probably the Tesla robot event a few weeks ago and things like that. How do you think that's going to make an impact about your work and your company's future?
I think that's a really relevant topic because in the end, we do deal with things like AI and robots, and AI is doing all of our work. I have to say, in a way, I think that is going to be helpful because if we have an AI that's doing, I don't know, all of the organizational things for me, for example, I don't know, managing my files or just organizing my files, like all of the things that I would usually spend my time on. I think at that point it's pretty useful. But if we allow AI and robots and like the whole new technologies to overtake a business, I think that would not look good. I mean, I personally don't think that that will happen, like not in the near future, because like the current AIs that we have are trained, like they're trained based on our input. So I don't think that they can think as creatively as we can, or they can make things as creatively as we do. But if that changes, I think that could become a problem also in the events industry as well.
So you don't see a robot bartender or anything like that happening anytime soon?
Not in the near future, but it's actually a good idea. I will have to write that down. No, I don't think so. I think that's way too far from us. And I think the problem is not having that or like getting a robot. I think that's not a problem. But the problem is the image, because if you have certain guests there, you have, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 people. It has to depend on how many people are going to find that cool and how many people are going to find that bad. So like your whole event is based on that, and I think that's a sensible topic when you're doing events.
Do you use AI, and if yes, which ones?
Not as much, I have to say. I do use ChatGPT mostly, but as I said, for like just helping me think through my ideas. So, for example, if I have a creative idea that I would like to have more in detail or that I would like to have it structured, I ask him to do it for me. But except from that, I don't. Or maybe like for writing, rewriting some text that I write. But apart from that, I don't use any AI.
So if you were to describe ChatGPT to somebody who never used it, how would you kind of advise for them to try it? What would you tell them to try?
Yeah, I think it's hard if you don't know what we're talking about, but I would say it's basically an engine and a machine that's helping you in doing the work that you can basically delegate. So as I said, like all of these things that where people don't have to think, he can help you with that. But as soon as it comes to like the creative ideas or like having to think of something, it's probably not the best idea to use AI, not for now. Yeah.
So do you see that in the same way? What is your kind of thought process on the advancements that are also coming to these systems?
Yeah, I have rather the same opinion like you do. Thing is that it's not about the CRM, it's not about the system, it's more about people who are doing it. You have to be aware that we have a mixture of the generations as a working force. And the thing is that, well, let's put on this that people who are 20 plus years in business have different methods and different systems, and are heavier to learn new stuff than the youngest one. And when you trying to balance the communication between them, usually don't make any progress in a business field. Your business won't be in progress. So thing is that if you put those all of this in a human factor, the first and the most important thing is to try to explain to people that they are really can save the time if they just put in play the connectivity with and synchronizing the data with CRM. When started to do this, they are usually being amazed and a bit ashamed why they didn't give an opportunity to try this earlier. But as you mentioned, especially in the businesses which have got a very long sales cycle, to put all those information in one place, people are usually imagining, okay, I need to stay at work at Friday 2 afternoon and then typing in all the notes of the meetings which I had or something like that. They're just knowing that AI exists somewhere over the videos in social media channels, and that's it. And after that, they're trying to figuring out how they escape from overwhelming, but after a while they are still standing inside of that trouble in that problem. So the most logical way is, before I even start to talk about CRM, what it can help, is to address the problems where they are stuck with in their sales process, in their business process, how they use it, what type of information are grabbing it, in a what way, and after that, just figuring out what they really need and tailor the CRM to their needs. This is I believe this is the best thing I can help them, and this is the best way they accept something new.
I know that you test a lot of AIs, that you know a lot about AI. So I'm wondering, how do you see integrating AI into Eduza maybe, or your own work as an educator? Do you think that AI is a threat or an opportunity? What is your favorite AI basically also? Yeah.
Okay, let's start with threats and friend or foe. I'm optimistic as a person, optimistic person. So I tend to fall on the more cautiously optimistic side of AI. I believe that AIs as we have them today, for example, large language models like ChatGPT and others, they are already replacing a lot of educational work, a lot of work that education professionals do, but in the boring parts, in the lecturing part, in the research and information gathering part, in creating quizzes, in doing presentations. I call that the boring part. The interesting part of our work, of people who teach for a living, is when you help other person create a meaningful change in their lives, in their businesses. And this is an area where people will probably mostly prefer to work with other people, because we don't enjoy software as much. It's not like I can commit to software that I'm going to create, that I'm going to do my homework, or that I'm going to complete an assignment. I have had task lists my entire career, and I have always abused them. I have never committed to them because it's just software. So AI can pose as an accountability body, but we're not going to respect it. We're going to respect other people we look up to. So I believe that the best trainers are going to get even better The best educators are going to have even more space in their future to work with. That's the best part of the AI. How are you looking to integrate AI into Eduza? So one of the biggest problems I have identified in business space is that companies and their employees and also entrepreneurs, they have problems, all sorts of problems in their businesses, in their careers, but they can't always identify which of those problems are solvable by more skills, more education, even more information. Sometimes people just suffer through problems, and because we're so overwhelmed with everything, we don't look for solutions. I see AI as a part of the future Eduza that helps anybody uh, describe their problem and get a solution that's in the domain of education, of training, of news, of upskilling or reskilling. So basically, you would come to Eduza and you would say, "Look, I'm having a problem with, I don't know, I'm swamped with work. What can you do for me?" And an AI would talk to you, would analyze your needs, would analyze our internal database of proprietary content, and we could provide our AI, Eduza AI, could provide um, not solutions but suggestions. Maybe you can try this. um, AI can ask you 10 questions and tell you, okay, based on your answers, we believe that you can solve part of your problem with new skills. These are the skills you need. This is the best educator to try because they have, I don't know, special experience. They are in your niche. They have special tools they work with, something like that. So of course, we have been thinking about integrating AI since day one, since it appeared on the scene, but it's not as easy to actually do it. It's hard, it's tough, because we expect AI to do the work of a human at the level of a human, and we have seen a lot of examples where AI is still failing us. So, yeah, it's going to become a tool, but let's see what the future brings.
I think that's pretty good for the future. And I do fully agree. I don't think AI is going to replace us. I think it's going to just make our lives easier. And that people were a little bit in this situation when TV appeared, radio appeared, electricity appeared, and that didn't stop us from doing anything. We just improved our lives. I do feel that humans thrive in creativity and in creating things and in solving problems, and that mundane stuff that we can automate and change will put us in a place where we discover more things that we even imagined to kind of be available to us, just like we did with this technology that we had. So I'm wondering, how do you see entrepreneurs or educators that are not part of a community like this adapting to that on their own? What would you envision for them?
So I believe that, of course, it's a new technology. It's not as easy as, just learn how to Google. There are a couple of switches, couple of parameters. You can, learn it in 10 minutes. But AI is much more complex. It's going to be pervade and invade everything we use today. All the tools, all the devices, everything's going to be AI powered, and it's not something that you can easily learn and without trying stuff. So when I went on my personal AI journey, I used YouTube, and I bought some one of those AIs. Yeah, I use Claude. I love Claude because it generates the best text, and I just played with it. I watched the tutorial. I saw something that I liked that I could use in my business, and I tried it out. It's tens and tens of hours of my own time. Of course, after hours, my free time. So if people want to know what they will be capable in the future, they need to know the capabilities. So getting yourself ready to at least understand what AI is capable of, that's the first step. We need to learn this. So I see that entrepreneurs are either overly optimistic, so they exaggerate what AI can do, and they are always disappointed when they try AI. They thought that they could do everything, and then they learned that there are limitations to the technology. So the overly exaggerated features need to be put in check. But also, if you are completely oblivious to that, you can um, automate whatever you do daily, that you can stop producing those files, that you don't need to copy paste as much. We need to know the little things that we can do every day and replace with AI. This thing needs learning. We need time, and we don't ever, Laura, you know probably yourself, we don't ever find the time. We set aside time for learning in our busy schedule, and then we learn stuff. Either we're going to put this thing into our calendars, or we're not going to learn it. So everything I don't know today is because it's never found a spot in my calendar. So yeah.
I agree. And my trick there is that I started doing, for example, if I get a message and I don't reply to it immediately, I will not do it. Let's be honest, in 2 or 3 days, I will forget. So I started doing, well, that's going to be 2 seconds of my time. I'll reply. And then I switch back to something else, unless I really did focus mode, right? So it's the same with AI, for example. I'm going to try a software, play with it a little bit, and then come back to something else because I want to learn and I know I won't know anything really fast. So either, go on Eduza and find a workshop that already exists that you can attend. So you do book a time in calendar. That's my also a little bit of a trick for myself, or just book a time in your calendar when you can. Even those 15-minute gaps between meetings, you don't have anything to lose if you just play around it in an app, or you go on YouTube, or you listen to an audiobook about something while you're folding laundry. So we can maximize our efficiency with those little tricks and then learn more, basically. How do you kind of assess Chat GPT versus Claude, even though you just said that you prefer Claude better? What is your comparison there? And is there a third party that maybe you think kind of is showing them competition right now?
Okay. Before I answer that question, I'm just going to add another pro tip. If you want to learn AI in your industry, try teaching it to your colleagues. It does wonders for your knowledge. I'm just going to leave it out there. So Claude versus ChatGPT versus other contenders. I like Claude because it simply generates better content that I have less work in post production, in post generation. After Claude is done with content, it takes me less time to bring it to the level that I'm satisfied with. So I don't use it for creative writing at all. I'm using it for I don't know, podcast announcements and stuff. So it's something that's repeatable, that has a system and templates behind it. And when I was tweaking it, I always got better results with Claude compared to ChatGPT. I'm just, when you take up a tool, you just get used to it. You no longer look at the other guys as much. So I of course I use ChatGPT because I teach ChatGPT to my audience. So I have to know the basics. I like a lot of things because they are still number one. They have the most tools. They have introduced search the first. They have introduced visuals the first. But I stuck with Claude because we are very text heavy and we keep using it. And I like one thing I like about Claude is that I have integration with Google Docs, and I store prompts that are part of my AI projects in Google Drive so I can collaborate with my colleague. That's a little trick that you have to have you have to have that more expensive subscription to work in a team. But I'm able, because of the Google Docs integration, which I which I started using with Claude first. I like that little thing that I can actually collaborate on prompts and share it with my team. So that's one thing. Other AI tools you ask about, I like, and actually I love it by now. That's Google's Notebook LM. That's They have created a really good, not just text generator, but audio podcasts. I have listened to a book summary the other day. Notebook LM can create an audio podcast that simulates a conversation between a man and a woman. And my God, in English, it sounds awesome. I could not believe it. I didn't have the time to read a book excerpt I wanted to read. So I created a podcast out of that content. And I just, when I had the time, I listened to it. It's amazing. It's amazing. And it helps me research videos I don't have the time to watch. So if I have like 10 hours of video I absolutely have to watch, no, I just put it into Notebook LM and let it create a summary out of transcripts. So yeah, Claude. And I like Perplexity. I use all the deep research tools across all those tools, and of course Claude for everyday use.
I just want to add for ChatGPT's defense that I do also prefer Claude, honestly, but ChatGPT recognizes patterns and memorizes things about you better. And there is a trend now going on Instagram and TikTok with prompts where you ask ChatGPT about what did you notice about me that I don't know, and I would definitely recommend people to put that there, because I had a therapy moment with ChatGPT based on that. I was like, whoa. So it's a little bit scary at the same time, but it's also very helpful because it kind of judges you based on your prompts, but not in a human judging way. It kind of helps you move there. I've also noticed that it generates better personal life suggestions for schedules, for exercise, for diet, anything like that. You can't replace that from an expert for sure, but something to maybe start with is also helpful.
Yeah, let me mention one honorable mention among the AIs is I recently I started chatting with Gemini, the live voice chat. I have it on my personal Google account. I don't have it in my business workspace account because businesses always get the best features last. But I have also had a therapy moment with with Gemini's voice. I talked to it. And I talked to it about stuff I didn't know the answer to, and it actually gave me a quite usable response that I'm using today. So, Gemini voice, yeah.
So I'm wondering, we're both from Croatia, and we still have that mentality in Croatia related to the secure job, which is not true, in my opinion. So how does that entrepreneurial insecurity of, income not being always the same every month, the fluctuations, how does that affect your motivation? How does that affect your day-to-day? How do you handle that after being an employee? That to me is the biggest change.
Yes, the biggest change and also the biggest challenge. But yeah, I have this inside motivation inside of me, and that drives me every day through every struggle. So I overcome myself and my struggles daily on daily basis. So yeah, it's not easy, but I have my goal, my vision, and I follow that. And I have also plans. So plans are like guidelines to me, but I also create space for life to happen. So the flexibility of plans, goals, and life to happen, I think, are the most important. So yeah, I'm practicing every day that.
I fully agree with that. I jumped into entrepreneurship after I graduated. So I didn't know what I was doing, for sure, because I feel that you should at least work for somebody first so you can see how a real experience in the company looks like, how a structure looks like. And so you realize that every company is basically a living, breathing organism that doesn't know what they're doing. Even if they exist for 50 plus years, everybody's still changing stuff, adding stuff, and working in the market versus just studying was so different, because when you're in school you have structures, exams are then, these are the books that you need to read for the exams. It's still stress when you're preparing for all of that, but you have those deadlines, you have everything kind of like spelled out. And then when you start your own business, you don't know what you're doing. You're just like pinpointing stuff, where you have to go, but you're figuring it out. And for me personally, that was very scary in the first few years. And I was so, focused on making it all perfect and making it all work, if that makes sense. And then only when I realized that the to-do list will never get lower, I will never basically catch up on anything. And I need to kind of like be okay with the chaos and with things not being done and being perfect. So how is your day different now when you're an entrepreneur versus when you were an employee?
Wow, it's very different, because you were in entrepreneurship for 7 years, So yeah, everything changed. My day basically looks like I woke up every day. I starting with practicing my yoga session, with yoga sessions and meditations or breathing sessions. Then I have breakfast with my family, and then I start writing, planning, doing, preparing myself for workshops and training sessions, etc. And I have my everyday steps, which leading me to my to reach my goals. Yeah, and yeah, it's different.
It's so different. It's literally, you have to kind of think about everything you have to do in a day. There's no it's so good that it's open. You don't have like we have to do this by end of quarter 2, or we have to get to this result or to that result. It's more but it's also scary, because what do I do? What if I'm doing something wrong? What if this is not working? Is this the correct plan? Do other entrepreneurs do this? So it's so many thoughts. I'm sure they
So
cross your
many
mind.
questions, yes.
Yeah. So how do you feel managing yourself now? And how does your kind of are you a good boss? Do you give yourself vacation time?
Ja. Da, znači ovo mi je puno bolje jer si dajem tu nekakvu svoju slobodu kreiranja vlastitog i vremena i poslovnog vremena i dogovaranja poslovnih sastanaka i planiranja i dozu igre i veselja i radosti, jer ja ti većinom radim stvari one koje volim raditi i to me drajva i nekak se i okružim s ljudima takvima i zapravo uživam u tome što radim. Mislim da sam si ok, da sam ponekad jesam zahtjevna prema samoj sebi, naravno, jer moram neke stvari napraviti, ali si i dajem dozu i odmora i poštujem svoje vrijeme i to kako sam ti objasnila, da počinje dan i s jogom i meditacijom, i to je nešto što si želim i dalje zadržati bez obzira na količinu posla i sve kako će se razvijati biznis s vremenom, ali ako sebi ne dozvolim zapravo i taj odmor, ne mogu drugima dati pravu i punu verziju sebe kakvu zaslužuju. I svi moji slušatelji, i klijenti i obitelj, tako da eto.
I fully agree with that. Took me years to figure out that rest is not a reward. You know, I always say, even to my team, all of the all of the SOPs that we have in Proprium, they're not just because I sat down and I thought about potential. I made those mistakes. This is not because, I just, thought about this would be a good structure for it. No, I did it, so everything that you basically think that you can kind of mess up, I tried it, I did it. Let's find new mistakes so we can, have a better manual for the company even. So you're gonna get embarrassed. You're gonna send an email to a client that's without attachment, or you're gonna forget an email, or you're gonna keep it in draft, or something is gonna happen from any situation possible. So I think that love for what we do is crucial, because if you're not having fun at the end of the day, why do this? This is 24/7 consuming thing in your thoughts. Even if I have boundaries and I have my work hours just like you do, I'm gonna take a shower and an idea will pop in my head, or I'm gonna go on a walk and I'll be like, whoa, this could be a new product, right? So it's wild how your brain is basically wired on entrepreneurship all the time.
But you have to give yourself a permission to try and to experiment. I call it regular experimentation. This is a muscle that I believe entrepreneurs do not exercise regularly. I believe we should experiment more, and that we should have like an hour in our week just for that, just for experiment.
I feel that entrepreneurship is more about the mindset and working on yourself than it is about, business strategies and systems and all of that. I really feel that it's the limit of your own prejudice, fears, toxic thoughts, everything that you have that you don't work through, that kind of makes your business drown, I would say. How do you process that?
They say that we fall to the level of our systems, and I believe that we rise to the level of our ambitions and discipline. During my entire career, I have watched myself procrastinate, get frustrated, provide bad service because I was like this, and I have realized that the only thing I need to do today to succeed, of course, having an idea, having a path in front of me, is to do boring things every day and not give up. This is this sounds like common knowledge, like common sense. Get up, go to your office, do the work, and repeat it for 10 years. But repeating something for 10 years and then being, the overnight success in only 10 years, and nobody sees the past 10 years, that's the hard part. And certain entrepreneurs that I watch today, that I follow, I have started, like I said, the dots are connecting. They all say the same thing. Just persist. Just find something that works and do it. Just do it, like the old meme. Do it. It's so funny how we're unable to follow that one simple thing. Like being in the first grade in the elementary school, they gave us pencils, a paper, and they told us to write letter A the entire day. Letter A the entire day. And we're unable to do this today because we're all over the place. I believe the next skill for success is going to be the ability to shut everything, all the distractions off, and just focus on what's working today.
So opposite of multitasking, like we were being told to, and I fully agree with that. I think it's challenging because not every day is the same. And with the entrepreneurship, you have so many dips in income, in motivation, in challenges, especially when you have a team. People don't understand some things. Other people in the team are doing extraordinary work. There's so many things that I feel when you start your day, everything kind of pulls you to this side, that side, this side, that side. And the biggest kind of muscle that I'm still building, I'm not there yet, but is the fact that I can put my focus mode on my iPhone, just do my work, put my time blocks, and to stop feeling guilty for it. Because in the beginning, I felt like, oh, they're helping me. I should talk to them. I should do this. I should do that. I feel that with learning how to put boundaries, you're able to do what you described and then basically go from there. It's very visible when you're talking to entrepreneurs who is calm and who feels, their presence is collected. That person is usually the most successful person in the room. And it doesn't have to be measured in income. It can just be measured in like fulfillment and happiness of their work. And whoever is the biggest, busiest, stressed personality is usually the person with the lowest possibility of having a successful business. And from my experience, they usually, shut down after a while. How did you, when was that click for you when you realized I will not let my business run my life and I am not the same as my business?
We had a crisis at some point, like 13 years ago. I felt like I have built myself. I have built a prison for myself. So when you have a job and you work for somebody else, you can always quit. But when you have your own company, it's a wall around you that's running you. And at some point, I felt like I was suffocating within within the walls I have built for myself by myself. It was a crisis when I had to let some people go, when I had to actually literally fire them. And those people were so good. They were quality people. Some of them were our personal friends. And this is the time when I decided, okay, this was painful. Luckily, we have managed to stay in great relations with those people. So I have learned a lesson. I will not hopefully repeat it in the future, and I have options. I have not built a prison for myself. It's a prison with paper thin walls, and I'm not constrained by the current situation. Our situation at the time was that we had some issues in business, and we were either going to let people go or we're going to fall ourselves. So of course, naturally, we're here. So of course, we survived that shock. But if I had if I had an attitude that that I don't have options, and one of the options was to let people go, if I didn't give myself that option, I would not be here to talk to you, and there would be no Eduza. I would never have been a business digital marketing consultant, anything. So this is the time when I have, sat with myself, wrote a lot in my journal, and discovered that, business is not, I'm not my business. I will not be defined by anything that happens in my business, because today you have a great month or great day, and tomorrow is going to be completely different. And I knew that I was always going to be okay, because I realized I have so many internal resources. No matter what I try, how bad the day is, tomorrow I know I can, even if I dug myself into the hole myself, I can always stop digging and dig myself out of it. So this is what I did, and this is when when it clicked that business is here to support me. I am not here to be run by my business.
What did change in those 4 years versus when you just started?
Yeah, crazy everything. Because absolutely everything. Because when I started the business, I think just like everybody else, you're kind of just feeling, I call it your get your shit together
Yeah.
time, when you're like figuring out the type of clients you want to work with. You're like refining your own skills, getting better at what you're like, and getting the experience and what you're good at. Trying to just like overcome all those doubts of, is this actually going to work? Am I going to end up back in my 9 to 5, or am I ever going to actually leave my 9 to 5 to go in this full time? So in the beginning, I was going through my get your shit together phase, where I was just trialing, testing. But what I didn't realize was that the success was going to come quite fast. And things started to snowball really fast because my content was doing the selling for me. And I'm a big believer in your content doing 90% of the selling of everything for you. So by the time I was, starting to get inquiries and people were coming to me, it started to feel like my business was almost running me rather than I was running it. So around 2 years, about a year and a half in, I'd say, coming to the 2 year mark, I had a full wait list of clients. I had a full roster. Everything was perfect. I was 5K months from month 7 in my business. And I had taken off to go to South America. And I remember being in a hotel room in Colombia, sweating 7 a.m. in the morning because of the time differences with Ireland and my clients, and thinking, this can't be it. This cannot be the dream business that I imagined. Like, money was there, clients were coming in, inquiries were strong, the business had built. But I remember thinking, this cannot be it. This can't be the version of my future where in theory I had the life that I wanted. I had the freedom, I could take off, had the clients, but there was not enough money in the world that was going to get me to continue with the business the way it was. So I actually took a step back, burned it down. I said, nope, I value my experience in South America for the next 8 months over doing this, over the money it's going to give me. I had saved up. I said, I'm going to just live off that. So I let all my contracts finish and I stepped back and I really evaluated what I want, what a successful business looked like to me. Because yes, it was money, yes, it was clients, but not at the expense of my life. So it would have been when I came back in 2020, the end of 2022, and I rebuilt it after 4 months. And I stripped away any offers that felt like they were draining the life out of me. I reevaluated the type of client I wanted to work with, how I was positioning myself in the online space and what I wanted to become known for and what people were going to start approaching me for. And yeah, I launched premium one-to-one offers, scalable group programs, passive offers, things that people could do in their own time. And I really rebuilt my business around my life rather than trying to constantly catch up with the business and fit my life around the business. I had actually reestablished how to build a business successfully around myself and what that meant for me. And within 12 months, I had scaled to my first 6-figure month.
I'm wondering, what was your moment where you said, okay, I have to do that? Because most people quit on that point. They don't reinvent it. How did you decide to reinvent it?
Yeah, I actually remember really clearly when I came back from South America, I said to my friends and my family, like, I'm done with this. I can't take the pressure. I can't take like constantly being switched on. I can't take this. This can't be it forever. And then I remember them saying to me, Nadine, but you're so good at it. And it really makes you happy. Like, when it's working, it's making you happy. And you've invested so much time, so much money in. You've really put your heart and soul into this business. Do you really think it's the business that you don't want, or it's how you're running the business is what doesn't suit your lifestyle and doesn't suit who you want to become? And when I really sat down with it, and I really did weigh it up, because like I said, I didn't come from a business or from a background career that I hated. I wasn't one of those people that was in a 9-to-5 grind. I loved my career. So I did weigh it up, and it was a really strong possibility of just going back to my usual job and saying, well, that was a nice try. But then I thought about the deeper reasons why I had created my business. And although it was for freedom to travel, it was also not having to live under somebody's rules. Like, I am not a morning person, and I could not imagine having to go in for a 7 a.m. shift again with a 7 a.m. start and sitting in that traffic and being under somebody else's mercy of my time and my energy, or having to ask, can I have that time off, or banking and bank holidays again. And then on a deeper level again, I was getting older and I wanted more financial security for my future, to be able to take care of myself, to be able to take care of my mom, to be able to have the nicer things in life without worrying that I couldn't afford them because my 9-to-5 was only going to pay me a certain amount of salary every single month. And there was no way for me to get more than what I was getting in my life. And I felt like the more I thought about the future I wanted to create for myself, the deeper I felt disconnected from that career, even though I loved it. And it became a non-option. There was no other option, just only to make it succeed. And when I deep dived into my feelings around the actual business, it was like, I love this business. I give it everything I have. And the reason for that is because I'm so passionate about supporting the people that I do through my coaching. But I have to look after myself first. So what would I do with myself first? What would I advise myself if I was my own client? Would I say burn it all down and walk away? Or would I say fix the things that are not working? The business itself is what you really want, but how you're running it doesn't work right now. So how can we actually look at the options to move it. And then I went all in and I invested again. I remember it was my last €600 in my bank account. And I invested in another coach who was much further ahead than me. And I was like, okay, I need guidance on how to do this the right way, because the previous ways had got me so far, but it wasn't the furthest I wanted to go. It wasn't running the way I needed to. So getting that investment in the guidance and direction was like the pinnacle moment that actually helped me to break through any blockages that I thought that could never be me, or that's the kind of business I would love to run, but I could never do that. But realizing it was actually capable, I was capable of having that with the right direction to get myself there, it was game changing.
I love that. And what I love the most about what you said was the quote from your friend. And I even wrote it down. I think she said, "Do you really think it's the business or how you run it?" So, how did that feel? What came to your mind with that question? That's a really revealing question, basically. That's very powerful. So, what happened?
Yeah, so much. I think it was a case of reflection in that moment, because you know, when you're caught up in the moment of your business and things are on top of you and you feel hyper pressure and things are just not working as you imagine them, you're like, it's the business, I hate this, oh my god, this is not working, maybe I'm not cut out for this, maybe the idea that I had of the business is one thing, but what I actually need to do is, it was a nice experience, it was a nice hobby, but I'm not cut out for this. When actually, when you step back, you are totally qualified, you have the skills, you're so helpful, you are able to really make an impact and a change in your clients' lives and how you support whoever you support in your business. For me, it was my clients. But I think recognizing, okay, everything else in the background, like you could be the best person, I could be the best coach in the world, but if I didn't feel I had a business that could support me with that in terms of offers, systems, structuring the business, then it didn't matter how good I was going to get back to that moment of overwhelm and feeling like I wasn't cut out for it. So I had to fix it from the inside out first.
How do you help them to get to the moment that you had in that hotel at 7 a.m. when you realized, okay, this is not working for me? How do you get the clients to kind of see that for themselves?
I very much would use, it's a good question, because I think procrastination shows up at all areas of your business. It can start at the beginning when you're just starting out and trying to get your first clients through the door, and your imposter syndrome is screaming at you. You're not experienced enough. There's other people ahead of you. Why would people choose you? How can you charge this? And then all those things that come with the first year of procrastinations, or throughout as you evolve. And then there's another part of procrastination that I find, it's when, and I get this with my clients a lot, when they see success very fast, which is kind of like what I had, except I didn't procrastinate. I just kept moving. And I don't know if that was the best way forward either at the time, but they see success quite fast. And then the imposter syndrome of, how do I hold this? How do I hold the success? So one is like the procrastination of, how do I get it? And the other is, how do I, now that I have it, how do I manage it and hold it and keep moving forward? So what I always find is, and my clients will be the people who tell you this themselves, I am like a mirror. I am very much a mirror. Like, I use a lot of my talk therapy experience from my past career to really hold up a mirror, and I challenge my clients, and I always give my clients a disclaimer on the very first calls that we have, and I always tell them, I am going to force you to think deeper about your business than you've ever thought about it before. You're going to look at it in a completely different way. We're going to go much deeper than the surface level you've got right now, and I am going to ask you challenging questions. And I'm not going to give you the answer. Even if I know it, I'm not going to give you the answer. And you're not meant to know the answer straight away. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So it's okay not to know the answer. But by the time you do work this out with me and together, you will understand why I'm challenging you to think differently about it. And you will hate me a little bit, because there's going to be moments where you hate me for asking you the hard questions, or really reflecting back if your actions are aligning with what you say you want. And then I use that kind of mirroring system to them throughout as we're going through the coaching, which is why they evolve so at an accelerated pace and deeply. I don't really like teach things that are quick fix and apply this, but you don't know why you're applying it, but just do it. That's not my method. The way that I work with clients is I really help them to understand why they're making the changes in their business. So they see the click first, and then they apply it, and then we go into the practical side of it. So I have a strategy where I combine mindset and strategy together, so that it's like lifelong, like meaningful learnings that you're getting practical strategies that you understand. Okay, when I want that result, I can apply this 10 times. I know exactly how to click this in because I know why it works, and I know how to apply it now. And is the result I want, it's this is the method that I'm using. So I really do use it like a mirror, and I challenge my clients a lot through like a tough love situation of, I very much know when to hold space. And I think that comes from the 11-year career of really a lot of dealing with a lot of people who are going through quite emotional situations, and building a business is so emotional. You know, there's no way to detach your personal emotions. It's hard not to take it personal when someone says no, or when you release an offer and somebody doesn't even ask about it, or you are about to say something and your views are like, you put hours of like into creating content, and then you feel like nobody sees it. It's hard not to take that personal. But when you're detaching, it's the equivalent of asking somebody, are you sure that your actions are aligning fully with where you want to go? Or are you giving this your half your heart? Or are you creating half of the amount of content that you want? Or are you spending more time worrying about it and rewriting the same piece of content? Because you told me you spent 3 hours creating this content, but really what you meant to say was you spent 3 hours writing that same caption because you were worried that you were going to say it wrong. But what I always say to clients is, I can only refine what you do by putting it out there, testing it, and refining it. And that is the only way to learn what happens in business, what works and what doesn't. You have to be prepared to fail first if you want to succeed. You're going to fail 10 times more than you're going to succeed. So having these conversations with clients really I do work like a mirror system where I hold space for them, and they know I'll give them grace. I will listen to what they're going through, and we'll work through their mindset blocks. But then I will be like, okay, now pull up your socks because it's time to get the results you say you came here for. And people don't come to me when they just want to go slow. They come to me when they want the results at the end of working together, and they want to take action, and they've done the wallowing. They've done this is hard. And now they're like, okay, this is hard, but I'm okay to keep going. So I can hold it. And I think that that's so, so important, because procrastination is not a case of I don't want to do it. It's I'm fearful if I do it, I'll do it wrong, and other people will see me do it wrong, and then I fail. And what if other people laugh? Or what if they say, yeah, I told you so? Or they think wrongly about me? Or what if I do it wrong and it goes out there? It's always about someone else's perception of you. And then you have to think, well, what's the perception if you don't do it? That you never tried? Or what perception do you give to yourself at that point? That you would rather have said to somebody, no, don't do it. You're right. What if you do fail? What if it doesn't work? Or you'd rather look back and say, at least I know I tried and I gave it everything I had. And then that's the question I always ask the clients. It's like, do you really feel you're giving this everything? Or do you feel you're watering down yourself, or you're half bothered to actually put the amount of effort in that this needs and this requires? And then we level off in those conversations.
What comes with that is cycles of feast and famine. And that's something that you definitely battle with. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that you solve for clients, because with your programs and how you structured your own offer, you are combating that in a way. So you're not just giving them, like you said, a quick fix, but you're fixing the whole situation of their approach, of their offer, of their content, of the sales aspect of it. And I would imagine that after this is established and they are in a routine or in a structure, or they know what they're doing and why they're doing that, that then those 5K, 6K months happen. So could you kind of guide us through that? How does that look like? And how do you do that?
In terms of structuring the offers?
Structuring the offers, or structuring basically how they decide to go to that point, and what happens when they have those months.
Oh, well, feast and famine is normal in business. People need to normalize that not everybody's making a sale every single day of the week. And I don't think enough people say that out loud, because it's not sexy to say that in business. But you're naturally going to have ebbs and flows. You're going to have times where you're like, oh my God, I'm on fire. And other times where you're like, things feel hard. Things feel silent. And so I think that that's really normal. I would say the first thing to look at is, are your offers set up where you're directly trading money for time. So for example, creating recurring revenue in your business isn't a magical thing. It's literally setting up that you're getting money in the later months for the work that you're going to do for somebody. So that can be in terms of looking at how your offer structure is and saying to yourself, am I only working on project based? So for example, am I only if you're done for you service provider, am I only getting paid for this project for the next month and then they leave? Or is there a way for me to structure my offers in a way that I can create a retainment offer on the back of that, that now that I work with them, how can I retain them? How can I keep them? Or if it's a case that the person is on a retainer with you, rather than running it month to month, lock them in for a 3-month situation, because you know the longer that person works with you, the longer they're going to be able to get bigger, have bigger transformations, see bigger results, and you're also going to be able to lock in that recurring revenue that comes from being able to support somebody for longer periods of time. So perhaps that person's on a retainment contract where they pay you once a month for the support for those 3 months. So it's about really looking at, where am I trading my direct time for money? Are you only getting paid for the hours that you work or for the project that you work on? Because working in an hourly or project based, even if I see people who create packages for their business, but the package is still based on hours. So you're still only going to get paid for the amount that you do based on how many hours you can bank for that person. Even if it's a 20-hour contract, it's like, use as many hours as you want and I'll do everything that you need for those 20 hours. When you could have probably gotten that work done within 4 or 5 hours, because now you're really good at it, but now you have to work all those hours to show that you're banking them to get paid. Whereas if you set up your offers in a place of, where am I specializing? Where do people need me for longer periods of time? What transformation could that person reach if they worked with me today and for the next 4 months, for the next 6 months, for the next year? What am I selling? Because it comes down to, where are you building your offers off ticking boxes for somebody? I can do a full system build for you tomorrow, or I can build a full system build, and then at the end of this, I can offer you a way to maintain the system build for when automations mess up, for when you are unable to fix triggers that aren't working, when you want to upgrade it and you want to include new emails. I am there for you because now I've built it. I know how it works. So when the very first thing you need to look at is your offer structure. Is it set up to only get paid in tradesmanships, like money for time, direct work that you do for the direct money you're getting? Or can you set it up in a way that either you do have those offers, but you also have support and offers that maintain the client that you already have, or from the beginning, the original client that you sign is coming into a longer retainment package with you. So that's the number one thing I would say to start with.
I think that brings us back to the, hourly versus per value kind of discussion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that. And I think it's a mindset game there, because, all of your core beliefs about money, your imposter syndrome, everything just like jumps out like you're opening a Pandora's box when you mentioned that to somebody who's a business owner. Because if they didn't solve that with them, if they didn't kind of like go over that mindset, they kind of feel they're ripping off a client if they don't go through the hourly. And that's the only thing that you have that's scarce. And if time is your inventory, you're going to be stuck being a perpetual employee forever, basically. And I believe that people do that out of fear. So how do you kind of see the transfer, from that, how people price that into value pricing, and how can you pinpoint the value if you didn't do the project yet, you don't know the impact of it? How would you kind of like structure those?
Oh, absolutely. So everything I do with clients is like, I would never structure anything hourly with clients. Even the clients who are on hourly and any of their current clients, I move them all. We create packages that move them all to package-based, value-based packages, because at the end of the day, you don't want to be the service provider or the coach, or the done for you expert who is only paid to tick boxes in somebody's business because you got a job done. You want to be paid for your brain, basically. You want to be paid for the way you think about solving that problem, the solutions that you support, the ones that you say, when I come into your business, I'm going to apply this to your business. And then in the end, you're going to get the result that you want. Because if you just want a quick fix to get it done and you just need a box ticked, absolutely, there are people who will work hourly and want that, and they'll go into Fiverr, or they'll go to the hourly packages and say, hey, I need this task done really fast. Can you do it? That's fine. There are people, don't get me wrong, I have people in my business that do the same thing and they're okay with that. But when you want to start being paid for your skills and not be penalized for how good you are at something, but instead actually be valued and invested in because your skill set is incredible. The way you think about solving that problem is incredible. The results you're getting at the end transformation that you support your clients to get is more than just if that was an hour or it was 10 hours. It's based on literally the way you think about solving that problem for your client, and they will buy into your mind. I call this authority value. You're selling your packages based on your authority value of your skills and experience rather than just how many hours you can put in. Because at the end of the day, if I thought I could pay for a VIP 24 hours with somebody and have the exact same outcome at the end as if I worked with them for 6 months, I would absolutely pay for the VIP 24 hours. It would mean that I could get it faster. It would mean that I could get it in an expansive way. I could cover so much in so little time. If I thought I could get the same thing in a day that I could get in 6 months, I would instantly start to pay for it because I'm not paying for the hours of the time. I'm paying for what I believe I'm going to get at the end. And when you start to want to focus on buyers and ideal clients who are not investing in, who don't see price, they don't look at price and associate it as a negative. They see it and associate it with quality. The higher your price is for the value that you're giving and the end result you support clients to get, the more likely they are to invest in you because they're not thinking in the quick fix, the cheap option. They're thinking in, oh my God, that person's price is this because it reflects what they're bringing to the table. It reflects their experience, their knowledge. And I don't have enough experience in this, or I don't have the time to get to that, or they specialize in a section of my business or my life that I don't understand enough. I need their experience because I can see they've worked with these clients, they've done it for themselves, they're walking the walk. And now they're no longer paying you to be a box ticker or to just get a job, a quick, cheap job done. They're actually investing in the result they're going to get because they have you as part of their team. Whether that's as a coach or as a service provider, like a done for you expert or whatever capacity you're in, they're no longer investing in you to just tick a box or get something done. Now it's, oh my God, the person, I want your advice. Have you ever been through this? Have you ever experienced this before? How would you go about this? And then they're no longer just getting you to do the job. They're like considering you as a team member that they want as part of their growth and the end bigger result that they're really looking for.
So how does it feel to work with entrepreneurs and freelancers? What's different? What's some of your favorite stories? What are some of your maybe, situations where you realized, "Oh, I don't know if I should continue doing this." Did you have any of those bumps in the road?
What you realize pretty soon is that when people set up goals and they're not really sure about those goals and they don't really feel ready for it, they will find all kinds of excuses. So I've heard many creative ones. The dog ate my homework, I'm not ready for this presentation. And that was interesting for me from adults. I think from a psychological perspective, you can learn a lot about yourself that way when you observe other people and the kind of math they do to find a rationalization for something that they're deeply afraid of can be quite interesting. I'd say that's been a challenge. What's super interesting for me as well is that I've had clients who have a lot of experience, who are really experts in their fields, and I admire them deeply. And then I realized that they are very insecure when it comes to their communication skills in English. And they can be fluent, right? We're talking about different levels here, but even the fluent ones can be quite stumped by their perfectionism. And that's been a challenge. And that's always been super rewarding when we kind of face that head on and realize that we can do something about it.
So let's say I'm just starting out with thinking about going to a global market, and I don't think I'm good enough. I think I need to have another certificate, and I'm learning, I'm preparing. I need a website. I need all these stuff. All the tools ready, and when I launch, it needs to look like this huge successful company. Would you tell me to wait more, or how would you encourage me to just switch? And what's the difference between just having clients on Croatian market and global clients? Is there any difference?
Right. Well, The answer is it depends, of course, what your industry is, what you're aiming for. You will get more of a range. So, whatever your price is or whatever you expect to get for your services, you will get more options there. That's one thing for sure. I wouldn't tell you to wait. I think that would be very counterproductive. What I tend to do is find one small victory and then the next one and then the next one and so forth. This is what works. We focus on small things first and then we get to the big ones. And sometimes the small ones or the ones that are seemingly small get to be the big ones, the ones that really, boost your confidence, or they get somebody to reach out, and that one extra person that tells you, wow, you did well, is enough for you to really see that you are in the right place.
Intuition doesn't lie, and when you move aside all the bells and whistles and all of the stuff that we think we need to have, and like what entrepreneurship is, basically our kind of approach, it's a little bit different. Do you find that to be the case for you also?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing that I always remind my students is, the question is, how do you judge others? What's acceptable to you? If they're preparing for a conference, what would you say if somebody took 2 seconds to think of a word that they're looking for? Would you immediately put them in a box of, you know, incompetent, unprofessional, I never want to work with this person? Of course not. So why would anybody else think of you in that way? We are really, really kind to others and we forget to be kind to ourselves.
I'm wondering, with all of that experience, with all of the students, the student work, and the podcast, what would be the advice that you would give to someone who's held back by English insecurity, especially as a non-native speaker?
Find someone for accountability, be it an English teacher or even a friend who is really good at the language and will perhaps, I don't know, take you out and make you speak with someone if there's an opportunity for that. um, Find someone who's going to be there for you and tell you to push forward, and that's the best way to go. It's the easiest, it's the most efficient. You will build a relationship on the way. You will have fun if you are comfortable with this person. If you're not, then find someone else. And I think it's the most efficient way to go, because if you don't need that someone to push you, then you're already there. So what are we talking about?
Makes full sense. And for my final question, what communication skills should entrepreneurs focus on in 2025?
Well, that's a good question. Since you say 2025, like speaking with AI efficiently, because that's a language in itself. But more generally and more universally, active listening is a really big one. Because if we keep on thinking about what we need to say next in a conversation, if we keep on focusing on ourselves, which sometimes people understand this as you're accusing them of being narcissist or whatever. No, you're telling them that they are human and they are self-conscious, and the more they know about what's lacking in their knowledge, and this can mess your perspective on things really badly. So um, focus on active listening, focus on what other people are saying and how they're responding and what they're not saying. Because once you exit yourself, you will see things more objectively and you will respond to your clients and to the needs of the market or whatever collaboration we're talking about. So that's a big one. And that's something that we all need to practice. Another thing would be creativity in communication, flexibility in a way. That's really important in language learning, because it quite often happens that an expert wants to find that one specific word for something. And okay, there are contexts where the one specific word is important because you're defining something, let's say. But most of the time, when we're talking about building relationships, as you said, rather than a conference talk, it's not going to be the one word. There are many other words you can use instead. So being capable of just taking a step back and saying, how can I put this? And then finding a different way of expressing the same thing is a really, really important skill. It's going to help you avoid a lot of awkward situations. Another one would be soft international communication skills. um I'd say curiosity is a big part of this, like being really curious about other people's cultures. And we're not necessarily talking about a different nationality. It can be a different region, it can be a different generation. Like a lot of people slack off Gen Z these days, for instance. Like that's a cultural issue. Instead of doing that, be curious about what motivates these young people or the older generation, because that's going to enrich all of us. It's going to make us, again, more flexible, but also more knowledgeable and more capable of attracting clients and opportunities, because people will feel seen and heard. Let me plug that, those keywords again. And empathy. Empathy is, I think, a big part of all of this, what we were saying, curiosity and flexibility with empathy. Because if you're empathetic of other people's mistakes and worries and fears and all questions that they have, then you will see that reflected towards yourself, and you will be better at active listening and receiving whatever the key information is.
So what would be, top 5 signs somebody's completely drowning in their business and they need your service?
Oh, top 5. Oh dear, if you have 5, you really need me. Top 5 signs. Definitely overwhelm. Definitely. And overwhelm comes in so many different categories, but I always feel like overwhelm, and even for myself, I've, especially lately, the past year or so since going out and freelance, I've seen overwhelm is you're on the verge of tears. That's when I kind of step in and try to give them the big vision again of, yes, I completely understand that these 200 things need to be done. They don't need to be done tomorrow. They're not all going to move the needle in your business. So overwhelm and unfortunately tears. However, when I do see the tears and we have our chat and I do my pep talk, I do love to see the relief. Just, okay, this is what we'll do. This is what we'll focus on. And when I see the shoulders go down and the breath, I go, okay, now I've got you. Here we go. We're going to make a plan now. So the top 5. So overwhelm. We said the top 5 that they're drowning, right? Frustration. Definitely frustration, where they still think they need to do all the things. They either don't trust their team to do it for them, or they won't hire a team to help them and have their back. So overwhelm, frustration. Top 5. Oh, 5 is hard. You lose your focus. You're not focusing on the right things. You're not focusing on the things that are going to move the needle. You're going back into your comfort zone. I mean, I've worked with a CEO who had like a 6-figure business, and whenever she got super overwhelmed, she'd start designing social media graphics. And I was going, no. Yes, you're awesome at it. And yes, you have fun doing it, but you can't do that. Or I was working with another CEO who actually built physical products. And whenever he got overwhelmed with the team, he wanted to build. And I'm like, yes, that's your background. That's what you love doing. But you have a company to run. You have to do that, on your own time now. So yeah, they lose focus. They pivot. They pivot when they don't need to. They're not giving time to see if something is going to work. Maybe they, haven't signed a client in 3 months. So now they're going, oh my God, I need to change my whole audience and I need to change all of my programs. But you're not giving the data time to tell you if you need to do anything, or this one small tweak can fix all that. Don't all of a sudden go, looking to promote to marketers when your initial audience was corporate women or something completely out of whack like that. And 5, procrastination and perfectionism. They stop. Yep, they stop. They get so stuck in the weeds and they start to overthink, and it's got to be perfect, which means nothing gets done.
So how do you kind of explain that to somebody? And I'm pretty sure that you had to have encountered in 15 plus years of you doing this, stubborn entrepreneurs that don't want to change, but their business results are screaming that they need to change basically, and they don't understand this yet. How do you kind of handle those conversations with them?
I actually haven't run into, well, yes, they're stubborn. We're all stubborn, but they're not stubborn to change.
Okay.
I haven't had that happen actually. They're always open to change. Too much change sometimes. Like I said, they're pivoting too much. The hardest thing I have ever found to get them to get on board with, except for one client, is SOPs, standard operating procedures, because it's time consuming. However, with all of the AI that's out there now and everything like that, creating SOPs are so much faster. So once they get their head wrapped around, first of all, unless it's absolutely necessary, you're not the one that needs to write it. The person who normally does the job needs to write it. So if you have a team, so like your team of 14, if you have a graphic designer, you're not going to write the SOP on how to create your social media graphics. She is. So, I mean, if you're still the one where you have everything up in your head, yes, you have to create them. But like I said, there's so many programs up there now, you kind of like speak to them and they write themselves almost. So I think it might be easier now if I was in that role to get people on board with creating that, because once you have SOPs, like I would preach SOPs over automation. And I know everybody is big on automation and it's awesome and it certainly has its place, but I've seen people come in to companies and they don't understand the automation. So now you need to explain, well, this is how this works and this is why this is triggered, and oh, it's broken. How do I fix it? If you have an SOP, it could tell you how to fix it. And an SOP is really good for new hires to give them all the processes that they need, start to finish. This doesn't mean that you hire somebody and you go, here you go, you're on your own, here's your SOPs, you should be able to do this. However, in the pre-onboarding, because pre-onboarding is so important, and that's a step a lot of people forget, is that something they can look at before they even start with you. And they can come with their questions for their initial onboarding and they're off and running. So I think SOPs are super important, as well as proper onboarding, which I just preach all the time.
How can people make sure not to get lost in SOPs? So if you're going to delegate, you should have an SOP. And then you have like 500 of them. How would you structure, how do you approach that with the companies you work with?
Good question. Get lost in the sea of SOPs. Well, I think if you have your SOPs done correctly, you don't need an SOP for every tiny little detail. So if you're giving somebody a task, there should be one SOP for that task, or 2 or 3 that branches off depending on how big the task is. So if you have them done correctly, then you shouldn't be wading around in too many SOPs. Have them linked. So if you have your main SOP, I'm trying to think of an example. My mind is going blank. You have your main SOP, and within that, the way I used to do them, I haven't done one in a long time, but I would have all the links up top. So I know some people, when they're doing them, they'll link throughout the SOP. So it's like reference this document. But if you change that link, now you need to change it 5 times in that one document instead of just once up at the top. So I would say keep it as simple as you can. Don't put links throughout the document. Put all your references up top and then link to whatever you need. So don't say reference document ABC and don't give them the link. And now they're going through the Google Drive or their ClickUp going, well, where do I find document ABC? So just link to everything. So even if you do have a main SOP and that branches off to another 2 or 3, it's still all there. So your task can still be broken out, but nobody is going, how do I find it? Is not named correctly, is not in the folder that you said it was going to be in. just link and put one link in each document.
Would you?
I don't know if
It
that
does.
answered your
It
question
does.
or not.
I'm wondering, would you say that it's smart to have an SOP and how to write an SOP, or is that a little bit of an overkill?
I think you should have an SOP on how to write an SOP because, like I said earlier, it's not one person's job to write an SOP. And it goes back to my example of the CEO who tried to get 5 different people to write the web page. If there was an SOP to say what it was supposed to look like, everybody would have at least had the same format and the same tone. So yes, have an SOP on how to write it so everybody's following the same format. Everybody knows what to include and how to do it for sure.
Do you encounter a lot of people still resisting, even in 2025, the idea of having a CRM and sticking with spreadsheets, or no?
Well, they are mostly afraid. What they are afraid of is learn another new stuff. This is the something that brings hair upwards head to most of them. Thing is that I'm trying to bring them an approach that it's not so bad. There are some things to learn, but they are unexpectedly small amount. So basically, basic thing is that I want to promote to people the other stuff. That CRM is something that you shouldn't afraid of because it's a really nice tool that brings you more free time for yourself, because arranging and using it on daily basis, especially in work time, create it really skyrocketing you with the speed, with achievement. You're achieving a lot more in working hours than without CRM. That's definitely.
And especially if you have a longer sales cycle, that's mainly for service-based businesses. You really need to remember the details. You can't just hop on a call with somebody after a few weeks and not remember their name. If you have another team member that's working on that account, they need to know that there was a call in the past. And it's really hard to kind of get that connectivity with a spreadsheet. I think spreadsheets are a great start when you are still, figuring out as a small business, like, what are we doing? What is our sales cycle? And CRM is there when you already understand basically, or you're beginning to start to understand, these are our things. This is our recipe that we are working on. That's basically, working for us. And then CRM makes that much easier on a bigger scale. It helps you. It removes the mental load, I would even say, because I know for myself, when I open my list, I don't have to remember everything, and I can just forget after I finish with my day. And then when I open my system, I can just see these are the 5 people I need to follow up with. This was something that we talked about last. And with all the technology, I think you're probably going to agree with this, even with AI, recording tools that provide transcription of the calls and all of that. It's not meant to replace the human in the sales cycle. It's meant to give you, like you said, more time, more freedom, and to create more meaningful relationships with your clients. And I'm wondering, we've mentioned the sales cycle, we've mentioned the CRM, but there is one aspect that you also mentioned a few times, the ideal client. So could you kind of walk us through the ideal client, the buyer personas, all of those tools that kind of help people, but they might not be aware how to use them if they're just starting their business?
Yeah. Well, if you put the complete uh, philosophy about your business, that is everything about the customer, everything is about the client. Ideally, is to start with what your client will look like. Well, it depends in what kind of industry you are. It doesn't matter, of course, if you are not in fashion industry, you don't need to have details that is 2 meters high, blonde hair, blue eyes. But thing is that you need about things about education, geographically where they are standing for. Is it the sea coast or a tropical zone or something in inland or something like that? Or you need years of experience, role play on the job, or something like that. The industry that you are targeting on. So these are the basic stuff that you needed to frame out your services, and you can usually put some more clear in picture to those men, because you already assumed what pain points do they have and how do you solve them. So ideally is to put out all those characteristic or character lines on a piece of paper, as many as you go, trying to niche down the possibly you can, because if you know all those criterias, it's much easier not just to start with the selling conversation, but it's ending with the closed one. So this is something that you really need to do as a first thing. Second thing, which I found the most important after the creating the buyer persona, is being aware of your mission and vision, business mission and business values 24/7. Really, this is something that is mostly important, because this is your fuel for moving on, for rising up, making growth, and making progress in any part of the business. If you know why you do it, this what you do it, there is no place for suspicions. Will be CRM something that you need or not? You need a system that is building up your information accordingly, put it in all of those places where with the right informations in front of the right people at the right time. This is basically it.
So what is your experience with LinkedIn? Because I know you are a power user. What are some of the tips that you can maybe provide to educators or any entrepreneur that's listening to us? And did you get any, I would say, sales through LinkedIn? How did LinkedIn help your business? I have to say, I noticed that you comment a lot, you use it properly. So what would be your advice there?
My best advice today is not to rely on comments and posts solely, but to hit the DMs. So that's what I've been doing lately, since like regularly. This is the boring stuff that I have to get up every morning and do every morning for the next 10 years. I talk to people. I introduce myself. I find somebody who's interesting, people who have followed our page or have followed me personally. I just introduce myself and offer not my assistance, but to just say I'm here. I love to chat. I love to provide some links or knowledge, or maybe connect people with people that need to know them. So that's what I do on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the place that actually gave. Without LinkedIn, the way I've been building it, there would be no Edusa. I have maybe built like 90% of everything over LinkedIn, because this is where my target this is where everybody is. It's the digital conference or meetup that runs 24/7. So of course I have to be there. I would say that people are not using LinkedIn to its fullest extent because they are afraid that they're going to, be boring to somebody, that they will bore other people if they introduce themselves directly. When I say introduce ourselves, get to know people, network digitally. I'm not saying that you should, slide into somebody's DMs and start selling. No. When you introduce yourself to 100 people, 5 of them will tell you, oh my God, I've been following you for 2 years. You have the best posts. I've been meaning to contact you and you beat me to it. So it's just a numbers game. I'm in sale. I've been in sales my whole career. I've been selling websites, selling marketing consulting. Now I'm selling our promotional packages. So out of 100 people, 5 will always be interested in what you're offering. Of course, if you weren't like quiet on LinkedIn. I post a lot, I comment a lot, I socialize a lot. And when I approach people, 5 out of 100 will always tell me, oh my God, I was just thinking of you. Are you reading my mind? So, yeah, that's the power of digital networking. It's just a numbers game that is working in your favor if you are willing to play that game.
I definitely agree, and I really feel that it's matter of assumptions in a way, because people assume that they won't get, their message won't get received as well and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, everybody on LinkedIn is also a person behind the screen, just like you. And if you do send a message, you will get either a response, but rarely someone will be rude. I mean, that's the whole point of them having a profile there. They are basically there to network, and even if they are not that extroverted or ready for conversations like that, you're basically helping them, because like you said, somebody will always say, I wanted to reach out but they didn't know how, so you just open that door faster, basically.
Yeah. Let me just use one example so that people know what they can expect. When you said people, we are all afraid that people are going to be rude. I have connected with hundreds, literally hundreds of people in the past couple of months. I didn't get one rude response. One person offered to answer my question if I paid them. That was the rudest response I got, and they were very friendly. Very friendly. So that's like LinkedIn is a place where people moderate themselves as well, because this is a place of business. So out of all, I call them old networks, LinkedIn is the best in that regard.
I love that example. And I feel that people really are open about talking about what they do. It's just a matter of how you approach them, because I sometimes I get requests for connection and somebody's selling in the connection message already. That's not the way to approach somebody. Don't try that. The old salesperson going from door to door selling, Hoovers and Bibles and stuff like that. That's not what works today. It's relationships. And at the end of the day, I've noticed that maybe sometimes some people don't become my clients, but I get referrals from them just because we had a pleasant conversation. They mentioned my work to somebody else and then we connect. So I think that's also a very smart thing to do. if not just that, like you can learn so much and you can test your market just by conversation. You can really hear about their pain points and you can get an idea for a product. It doesn't really have to be a sales conversation, it's just a relationship between people, I would say.
Absolutely. And of course, sometimes you need to buy something, and it's good to know people too.
I definitely agree. It really feels like you stumbled upon LinkedIn in a fully different way than people usually do. Just like you said, people look at it as a job searching platform. Nowadays, it's more of a networking platform because I think it's, taking its full swing only now after so many years of it existing. But you had this, I would even say, pure intention. So you were not thinking about it from the usual personal brand perspective that most people kind of start with. So your goal was to find people who think like you. And I think that was the first step in getting the followers and to becoming a top voice for this. How did that journey start? How did you start posting? What did you start doing on the platform?
So, yeah, so it's funny because one of my posts, in my initial days was, how every Sunday I want to quit my job, and every Monday I find myself, sitting in my office cubicle, just, not being able to quit where I felt, I don't belong. And this post got me amazing, amazing engagements, and, many people could resonate with what I had to say. So I would say maybe these were the moments that kept me motivated. Definitely, you struggle a lot when it comes to engagements when you are starting on a new platform, and same happened with me. First 6 to 10 months, you could say approximately, I hardly got any engagements on what I was writing. But as I said, it didn't start with that process where I wanted to build a personal brand. It just started with providing all the value I could through all the freelancing experiences I was having with clients. Whatever I had to share, about narrative building, about positioning, because I was doing a lot of content at that time and a lot of marketing as well. So that was the starting point for me, just sharing with without any gatekeeping, I would say. And I think that has been the first step to building your target audience well, because to me personal branding is a byproduct of all the value you can provide to your audience. And if you are able to do that, that is the time when people want to talk to you, they want to collaborate with you, they want to work with you, and they even trust you as someone who could take up their work in a much better way, even if thousands of people are doing it. So to me branding is all about establishing that level of credibility, trust with the quality of work you deliver. And it doesn't just stop there. It doesn't just stop there. It's more than that. It's also about being in that top 1% bracket, where people when think of you as someone who is unforgettable, creating that impression where you are unforgettable, unmemorable whenever they need your services. So yeah.
How does it look like in the beginning, and how do you make that leap into content creation on LinkedIn? What would you say to somebody who's trying to decide?
I would say that come from a place of vulnerability. What happens sometimes is we are trying to be perfectionists in what we write, and just getting caught in that loop of being a perfectionist. Sometimes things get procrastinated. And very honestly, with the kind of people I work with, they are very hesitant to trying something new, because they feel it would take a lot of their time. But it actually doesn't. If you are just writing things, or maybe putting out your client experiences, or maybe sharing your stories, which could have your heart in it. But at the same time, I want to say that, LinkedIn as a platform needs to be used very strategically when it comes to building that magnetic messaging. And that is why you definitely need a helping hand when it comes to having your stories written in a way that your target audience actually resonates with you.
I'm
Right,
I'm
right.
wondering, with all of that in mind, so posting regularly, making sure your content is authentic, it speaks your story, basically, you're building relationships. How has your presence on LinkedIn directly impacted your visibility in media, invitations to speak, or recognition in the industry?
Right. So I would say the impact has been very much related, because when I started becoming more visible, I started getting more people who wanted to feature me, who wanted my story to be out there, speaking at virtual summits, podcasts. I even got an invitation to speak at Global State Digimacon. I'm a very active speaker here in India, addressing colleges, universities, even got a chance to, cover one of the biggest uh, PM speech here. And it has all happened organically for me, Laura. And that's the best part, because I could just unleash the power of using a platform strategically. And I would say I definitely have the first mover advantage, because I started 8 years back. But at the same time, I want to reiterate uh, that consistency and quality has always played a very instrumental role for my growth on LinkedIn. I had many moments where I wanted to give up, because it was not working for me. Especially the first 10 months when I was posting, though I didn't start with that motive where I wanted to get engagements. But when you are posting, you somewhere have that kind of an expectation. Expect that at least some people are seeing your post and commenting. But staying selfless, just staying tuned to what you are doing at that time is very crucial, because the real growth starts after 3 to 4 years of giving your time to something consistently. And for many, that is the challenge. Personal branding should again be seen as something which you are not expecting a lot from, because building a brand could take years, just like Rome was not built in one day. So that is the key to it. And at the same time, I want to also talk about something very interesting. So I had a very amazing conversation with one of my I was interviewing this lady who was all dressed in purple. So her hair were purple, her lipstick was purple, her nail paint was purple, her dress was purple, everything was purple. And I asked her, why would you dress like that for your interview? And she told me something that would stay with me for the rest of my life, that this is how I define myself. you know so it always is about the voice you bring in to a platform, whether it's more professional, whether it's more conversational, what you want your audience to identify with when they see your post. If they are seeing your post on LinkedIn and they're seeing your post on Facebook without them having your name, can they identify it's you? That is what personal branding is to me as well. Becoming unforgettable, becoming some something that people identify with you without your name into it. And so she told me then, continuing the story, so she told me that when I walk out on the streets, I'm an introvert, so when I walk out on the streets, this is how people recognize me, this is how they see me, and they want to start those first few conversations with me just when I walk out of the door. And that is my way of building my business better. I start those conversations, some turn out to be funny, some turn out to be professional, and that is how I build relationships even when I go to events and summits which are offline. So yeah, I mean, of all the persons I might have met, you know, she's the one who is always going to stay at the top of my mind for mindset coaching, because she created an impression which no one else could. So again, I want to say that, personal brand doesn't always have to be limited to LinkedIn, but, you know, it's just one powerful way of starting.
I'm wondering, you mentioned and you emphasized the keep going, the keep persisting. That I hear only when people really had dips in their journey. So I'm wondering, in these 8 years, what were your dips and how did you get to that point where you say, just keep going, it will get there? Basically, how did you pull yourself out of those moments and what were those moments?
Right. So one of that moment which I can remember is, exactly when I decided to put down my papers, after the job, I decided to quit. And that was the time, when I was having a lot of second thoughts. I was oscillating between, whether I should have done that or not, because though I was building my LinkedIn, and though I was getting my share of clients, everything, but that safety net was going away. And I was in that mind frame where I was struggling to you know to think that what would happen, if something just doesn't work. So those were the times, because entrepreneurship back then was even more unconventional, belonging to an Indian family, who does put job on a pedestal, though they wanted me to follow my dreams, no doubt, but I never wanted to let them down as well. And I would just say that, maybe that path which I took is, you know I'm grateful that I took that decision, because it turned out to be exactly the way I wanted it to be. But yes, I mean, I still have those days, where, I get caught in that net where, I'm comparing myself with other creators. And, this happens with us all the time. But, that endless loop is broken, you know, when I crack a deal by, clients wanting to pay me on call, you know, just by looking at my profile, and they don't even want to listen a lot, because they have been seeing my work, and they want to work with me. So yeah, I mean, it's a constant journey for each of us as an entrepreneur.
I definitely can resonate with that, and I feel that Eastern European parents are very similar to Indian parents in that regard, because I was the weird one that decided to pursue this, and I don't have entrepreneurs in my family. So it was, are you sure? Try a job first. I jumped after university immediately. I didn't even go for a job, I just jumped.
And for me, it was like, a dream job. So,
Yes.
work location was Google. I was given all the best meals you can imagine, all the delicious food. Then I had the cab facility. My weekends were off. You know, it was a job. My parents would ask, "Why would you
Yep.
want to quit it? We are with you, but why would you want to do something which is, working for you?" And those were the questions I had to first answer myself before, I could take that leap of faith. But I'm glad I did, and I could then later, build on this, because I think getting out of that mindset comfort zone is very important if you have to start a new journey for yourself. And it's not going to be easy, but I think it's going to be worth it if you are just consistent at it, and you are, giving to the community.
What advice would you give someone who is under 1,000 followers, even though we agree that this is not a huge number, or we should be focus on the number? But what advice would you give to somebody who wants to turn LinkedIn into a reliable source of leads, credibility, or career growth?
I would just talk about the three steps. So the first step would be, I'm sure they would definitely have some warm leads, uh, which they have collected the database. So add at least 20 to 25 of these people in your list, like in your LinkedIn. And by the end of the month, you would have close to 1,000 more people added to your list. Okay, if you are doing the strategy part well, like if you are sending them highly personalized messages, okay, that's a good number. Second thing would be that while you are adding them, make sure you are posting the content as well, so that they can check your profile, they are seeing that you're already doing great work, and all of that, for them to accept that request also. Sometimes it's very important. Then the third thing is, starting those conversations again, which we talked about in detail. And the third step is, starting with your newsletters, because they are really, really, really powerful. I have all the case studies to prove what I say. And, they are ranking on Google actually. So they get you a lot of traffic for those people who might be searching, certain keywords on Google, and they can be redirected to your LinkedIn profile, and they might want to connect with you after reading your content. So it's all interrelated. So make sure you are using all the three tips to the best of your advantage to get it out there.
For everybody struggling with that both internal and external factor, cultural differences, generational differences, people around you telling you what you can or cannot do, where do you start and how do you cope with that?
That's great. And thank you for sharing your experience, because like you, we keep it real. Like, I want to keep it really real. And of course, like, some of the things I'm saying could be very new and very confusing. And they're not terms that even I used 5 years ago, right? And I would say that I've been handed a lot of beliefs, like everyone has. We've all been handed beliefs from childhood. Our parents, were only doing the best with what they knew. And they learned that from their parents. And it's like everything gets handed down or handed up, whichever way you want to look at it. And so, but really here, like that quote says, I find with mindset, so mindset specifically, it doesn't change the situation you're in, but it changes the way you see and perceive and react to the situation that you're in. So I think one of the most helpful things to start doing is to get curious. Like, it's honestly that simple. Get curious as to why you believe the things that you do, right? Like, the sky is blue. We're told the sky is blue. We associate that color, right? It's like, why do we believe things? I'll give you the simplest example. I just said this the other day to my 8-year-old stepdaughter. I used to always say, I'm bad at math. I suck at math. I'm terrible at math. What am I doing when I say that? I am identifying as someone who is bad at math. So no shit, that I went through school struggling in math, especially in university. I went to school for business. I had to take stats 1, stats 2, algebra, calculus, like my worst nightmare. And like barely passing those classes, although I was grateful for that. But it's interesting because in university, I failed managerial accounting and I had to do it again, or financial accounting, one or the other. And I had to do it again. When I did it again, I got a B plus or like an A. Like, it was crazy. I actually had time to understand the concepts without all the other noise of my other courses. That was really eye-opening for me. And I was like, wow, because I always used to say, if I ever have a business, I'm just going to hire an accountant, right? I was like, I don't need to know this. I'm going to hire someone. I used to always say that in class. I'm like, this is a waste of my time. I don't need to know balance sheets. I don't need to know any of this. But again, back to that belief, I am bad at math. And I said to my 8-year-old stepdaughter that, hates homework and thinks that she can't do it. And I'm like, Macy, girl, whatever you tell yourself, you're going to believe. And I'm like, one day you'll understand this. I'm like, but I used to say this to myself. And it's that simple. Like, we need to start thinking about how we speak to ourselves. Even just saying something happens, you make a mistake. I'm so stupid. I'm so dumb. I can't believe I did that. How dumb was that? Oh my gosh, now I'm so embarrassed. People are going to judge me. Like, all of those thoughts, right? They're reinforcing our beliefs. So when you get curious about it, you start to question it, right? You question its validity. Now, this is really, really important. If you're going to take one thing away from this, among, we're going to say a lot of great things, but if you're going to take one thing away, the mind will believe anything you tell it. Anything. The mind does not know when you have a thought, the mind does not actually know if it's true or false. It just knows it's there. It's a thought. And so whatever you feed it, whatever you think, it believes. So if you think you did something stupid, you think you're stupid, it hears stupid, right? If you want the opposite and you start thinking those positive, like, better thoughts on what you truly desire, you start to rewire your brain. And then also something the brain does, it always finds evidence. Your only limit is ultimately your mind. So what I started to do was I started to spend more time focusing on what I desired and less time worrying about and thinking about and speaking about what I didn't. Now, I'm sure you will relate to this, everyone that's listening, and Laura. How many times do we talk about what we don't freaking want? I don't want to swear. I was going to say swear, but I'm not going to swear. How many times do we talk about what we don't want? Like, think about as you go through your day, right? You think about a situation, maybe you have like something happening tomorrow, maybe you've got a presentation and you're like, oh my gosh, I hope I don't screw this up. Oh my gosh, like, I'm so nervous. Oh, I'm taking a flight somewhere. Oh, what if my bags don't show up? We always imagine worst case. And unfortunately, society has trained us to think, well, if I think about all these worst case scenarios, then I'm going to prepare myself for when it happens. Talk about freaking manifesting what you don't want. And I did this, trust me, I did this for years. So what I realized I needed to start doing was focusing more on what I really desired. And the easiest and fastest way, the effortless way, as it's said in The Power of Awareness, the most easiest way is to imagine it. If you want to collapse time to manifest what it is you want, if you want time to collapse and you want that to happen faster, you need to start getting in tune with how you're thinking. And you need to start imagining yourself as if you already have what you desire.
So I feel that people avoid slowing down because then they have to feel. So this is where workaholism happens. And I always wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was a little kid. I grew up in the 90s and you had those Barbie dolls that were business women, and the movies started showing, like lawyers like Ally McBeal and, Sex and the City and all of those shows. And I was like, wow, look at Carrie. She's, financing all of her life with her column, and, she's doing great. She has these friends, and life can be much more than just like having kids. And not that I'm against that, for example, like, I think that's also a choice, and everything is a choice. So all I wanted was like, wow, I can be something other than what I see every woman around me be, in a way, if that makes sense. And I found that very inspiring. And I always, wanted to know, how did these women think? How did they start with what they're doing? But if you go back now and you look at those shows, all of those cool business women that I admired were overworked, burnt out, in their full masculine energy, because there were basically 1 out of 50 men in that office, right? They were very rare at that time, which was very heroic at that time, but now it's not rare, right? So I kind of feel I started getting all of that, and I was, taking it, feeling it, acting like it. And every single book that I wanted to read about business was written by a man, at least in my library, that were translated by authors from all over the world. Every coach that I could see on internet basically at that time was a man, right? There's
Tony
so many
Robbins.
women entrepreneurs now, and I really feel like I bought into the hustle. And for 12 years, I would be like, we get up, we do this, no feelings, discipline, and we do this and we do that, and we're gonna be millionaires, blah blah blah. And life hit me so many times with so many things that happened, and I just find myself at 33 now being like, yes, I do want this. I do feel happy as an entrepreneur, but like, is this really it if I keep pushing? Why can't I enjoy it? Why does it have to be a Lamborghini 20 years from now? That's not my dream, right? That's not me. Why can't I just have some happiness and basically kindness and enjoy working with people and enjoy the process, enjoy being part of it? We don't have to make everybody around us suffer and make everybody just hustle, 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 and we'll get there. For example, my team, they're very shocked when they join, and when everybody's, those first few weeks when you're afraid and you don't know the culture, and people are like, I have to take 2 days off, it's my sister's wedding and all that. And I'm like, great, take the whole week off. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, why would I need to give you permission? Just tell me enough in advance, right? And let's reorganize work. I mean, if my company burns down because we are not doing stuff for 2 days, then I didn't set it up properly. Let's be honest. And basically I learned that while I do still work a lot, I'm able to, in between those moments, plan a trip, take a break, find moments, enjoy stuff, unplug fully, and work from that, and then figure out where we want to be. And I no longer dream of this huge corporate building that we're gonna have, and everybody's gonna wear business suits and all of that, and we're all gonna be Ally McBeal and all of that. I dream of this global remote first team that actually respects each other, and we're helping people and we're transforming businesses. And I think you either get to that by working on yourself or being slapped around by life a little bit, just like you mentioned, or both. So one thing that I also learned through all the hardships is that my thoughts are not facts. I was so sure that my brain is like this AI model that's giving me like, this is accurate information. You are dumb. Now I'm like, yes, I am dumb. And then basically when I realized literally that, I would be like, when somebody would say positive affirmations, I would be like, I need to repeat stuff to myself to start believing it. That's some nonsense. And then I realized, yeah, I repeat negative affirmations to myself every day. So basically, I'm doing that right now. I'm just doing it negatively. So like, let's switch it up a little bit. So now when I hear a thought, I'm just like, that's an interesting piece of information. Why would that help me with anything right now? Like, thank you. Let's move on. I acknowledge it, just like you said.
We spend all this time worrying about shit when it could be gone in a millisecond, right?
Yeah.
It can be wiped away. And this is the interesting thing too, is like, but again, so everyone complains about things, but they don't open their eyes up. They don't take ownership that you're choosing to be where you are right now. You have power to choose your thoughts. Your thoughts and your words are creating your reality. So again, back to this choice, you have a choice. And it doesn't mean your situation is going to change overnight, but you have a choice to start thinking differently, to surround yourself with different people, to get coaching and mentorship from people that are going to help you, to work through your fears and doubts, to gain clarity on what you deeply desire. Like, that's one of the most interesting things. When a woman comes into my world, I'm like, what do you deeply desire? What do you really want? At what point in our lives do we stop dreaming? Like after the age of 12? Like, when our senses come in, our subconscious kicks in, and we start worrying about things and we start really like taking on what our parents have done and creating this life for ourselves, like when do we actually dream? And that's the most beautiful thing, like hearing from women what they deeply want. And the funniest thing is they'll always be like, they start their dream. They're like, well, I like don't want to be living where I am now. Like I want to be in like a bigger house, but not like too big. And like, but I mean, I would like to have this type of job, but honestly, I'd be fine if I had like this. And I'm like, okay, pause. You're limiting yourself. I'm like, you could wake up every freaking morning and take a private jet to Bali, and that's where your office is, and then fly home. You know what I mean? Whatever it is you want, like it's yours. Like you can have it if you allow it. And so clarity comes through dreaming, you know? But yeah, I think that clarity cannot be forced. Clarity cannot come from someone else. Clarity is something you find from within, and you must allow space and time. No, like drop the timelines. This is something that's really hard for me to understand initially. When I started joining these amazing communities, I was seeing women manifest shit that I was like, how is that even possible? And fast, like so fast. And all I kept thinking was, when's it my turn? When's it my time? We cannot put a timeline on anything, just like we can't put an expectation on something. But what you certainly can do is set yourself up for a more ideal outcome. So, like you said, Laura, we can't just sit around like hoping and wishing our manifestations are going to happen. We have to take action. And so when you get this intuitive nudge to do something, you have a thought to do something, do it. Allow yourself to be in flow with it. Allow it to happen. If you start to feel like you're sitting at your desk, reaching out to 10 people a day, doing your lead generation, doing whatever, because you have to do it, well, then I encourage you to get a bit curious about like the reasons why. Because if your energy isn't in a good place behind it, you're only doing it because you think and know, or you should be doing it. There's a balance there with like obviously creating a new habit. It's always hard to do something new when we don't want to do it. Like, trust me, the things that we often put off the most are the most important things we need to do. So there's a balance there. But I do think that what I've gotten in tune with is energetically, as I flow through my day, when and what types of tasks are best suited for certain times. I'm very creative in the morning. It's like my time. I wake up early. I listen to affirmations. I get some movement in. And I'm very creative. I hammered out so much the other day. And so it's like, I know that like I'm not someone to book meetings before 11. After 11, it's like, okay, great. 11 to 2, I'm happy to do meetings because that's how my energy flows. It's like if I had meetings in the day and I wanted to create some things for social media, like I wanted to create these beautiful story slides, which I did this morning for my retreat. It's like if I left that for the afternoon, I'd probably spend 2.5 hours trying to pick photos versus in the morning, I know I'm just in the zone and I hammer it out in like 45 minutes. So be in flow. Allow yourself to be in flow. Allow the clarity to come. Allow it to show up. Give yourself space and time for that. Continuing to force and push, it's just not going to happen.
If you enjoy conversations like this, you'll love the Proprium Digital Network. It's a community where digital service founders get tools, templates, weekly insights, and behind-the-scenes guidance on building systems the right way. If you want to stop building systems alone and start building with support, join us at proprium.agency.